If I can call this meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. We have a few agendas we're going to be following, of which I know each and every one of you are going to stay for each and every agenda, I hope. No response from that? We have a special meeting of council. It's going to be our first agenda. This is a planning meeting under the official plan and rezoning application and amendment, Department of Planning and Development Report number 2013-25. And the subject is a public hearing report for an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, and the file number is D090113 and D14-0413 380 Elm Street. Following that, we're going to be going into our committee meeting of the whole, and following that, we'll be going into our council meeting, which I expect most, if not all, the items that we discuss within our committee meeting of the whole will be discussed and debated and voted upon there, then, and then therefore ratified. So with that, we're going to start off this evening's meeting with a prayer by Councillor Angie Desmarais, followed by the national anthem by Mr. Joel Longfellow. If you can all stand, please. Councillor Desmarais.
Heavenly Father, source of all truth and wisdom, who knows and loves the whole creation, watch over our community, that truth may prevail over distortion, wisdom triumph over recklessness, and the concerns of every person be heard. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons' command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joel. Well done as always.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure as always.
Members of council, if I can get a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Bodner, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening for this meeting? With none, Mr. Aquilina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening to you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and those in attendance this evening. As the Mayor mentioned, this application before us is to propose a zoning bylaw amendment and an official plan amendment for property located at 380 Elm Street, legally described as Part Lot 29, Concession 1. I will get into the details of the proposed application when I present Planning and Development Report 2013-25. This meeting is given in accordance with Section 17, 22, and 34 of the Planning Act. It's an application that has been submitted by Sherry Cousineau on behalf of Canadian Niagara Power. Mr. Mayor, the method of notice for this meeting tonight was given in accordance with Sections 1715, 22.1, and Sections 34, 12, 13, and 14 of the Planning Act, and Section 3 of Ontario Regulation 543/06, and Section 3 of 546-06 being Ontario Regulation. Notice was also mailed to those property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, and signs were posted on the property before April the 23rd. The explanation to be followed this evening, Mr. Mayor, is I will present the Planning and Development Report that outlines the details of the proposed amendments. We will then open the floor up to the applicant if he or she wishes to address council. We'll then open up for questions of clarifications to council, to myself or the applicant. We will then open up the floor to those members of the public that wish to address council. I will then give an announcement respecting written notice of passage of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment, and I'll give an explanation of future meetings to be followed after this presentation this evening, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I would like to present the application that is before us this evening. As mentioned, Sherry Cousineau, on behalf of Canadian Niagara Power, has submitted an application. The property is located at 380 Elm Street. You can see in the aerial map, this building was formerly Port Colborne Hydro. It is now operated by Canadian Niagara Power. What Mrs. Cousineau has proposed to do is to change the current public and park zoning of the property to allow for a neighborhood commercial zone that would also enable a business and professional office to be run out of the front portion of the property. There's an existing building. The application also proposes to change the zoning to a light industrial zone that would allow the building on the western portion of the property to be permitted as a warehouse and any use accessory thereto. The application also proposes to eliminate the requirement of a planting strip along Elm Street. The official plan amendment on the property proposes to change the current urban residential designation to an industrial designation, and to keep the current urban residential designation that would recognize the neighborhood commercial use of the property. You can see the existing building to the west of the building up at the front. This building here would be permitted as the neighborhood commercial zone, which would enable the business and professional office to be ran out of it. The building back here you would see as a warehouse. Those in essence are the applications that are before us this evening. No comments have been received by any member of the public, Mr. Mayor. The following agencies have commented on this application. The city's building division has indicated that building permits will be required for any interior renovations, including plumbing and HVAC. The city's Department of Engineering and Operations comments they have no adverse comments to the application. The Region of Niagara Public Works Department Development Services Division has submitted comments, and I will summarize those as follows. They are not opposed to the amendments, subject to the following comments. In order to minimize potential land use conflicts, the proposed zoning should prohibit outdoor storage. Also, the city may wish to consider allowing the warehouse and accessory uses through a specific special policy exception to the urban residential designation rather than redesignating the lands to an industrial light designation. That would then eliminate or further minimize potential compatibility issues. They comment that any future change of use from the proposed business and professional office to a more sensitive use would require an environmental site assessment and the filing of a record of site condition on the Ministry of Environment's Environmental Site Registry in accordance with Ontario Regulation Ontario Regulation 153/04 as amended. In addition, any possible redevelopment of the warehouse building for residential or other sensitive land use would also require an environmental site assessment and record of site condition filing before a change of use from industrial. Policies that affect this proposal, Mr. Mayor, is that the Region of Niagara Policy Plan designates the property as urban area. That designation supports policies for industrial, commercial, and residential use. The City of Port Colborne's official plan designates the property as urban residential. That policy allows for all forms of residential development and also allows for neighborhood commercial uses, public uses, and park and school zonings of the property. The City of Port Colborne's new adopted official plan designates this property as urban neighborhood where all of the same policies are there with respect to this property. Right there you will see the current designation in the official plan as being urban residential. This map here contains the actual zoning adjacent to this property. Property is located in this area right here. As you can see to the north is the Lions Field that is zoned public and park. To the west is institutional. To the south, second density residential. And to the east, second density residential. You can see some of the highway commercial uses in the northeast portion of the city, adjacent to the property. Mr. Mayor, this does briefly go over the application before us this evening. I really have nothing else to provide council at this time, but would conclude my presentation of the Department of Planning and Development report And at this time, I'd open up the floor if the applicant wishes to address council.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. If the applicant would like to come on up, they can address council. Yeah, Mr. Cousineau, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for having me. I'm actually not the applicant. My wife is the applicant, but she's a little camera shy. So, Sherry and I are small business owners in Port Colborne. I'm a chiropractor, as some of you know. And right now we have an office on King Street, which we've had for 15 years. Our plan is to purchase this property so that we can use the front portion and expand our business. We're looking at the potential for 5 new jobs in Port Colborne and about a $1.2 million economic impact. I find this meeting, while it's important and we have to have our due diligence, our current stance is that this property should already be zoned for us, in that when it was Port Colborne Hydro, it was zoned park and public, and I fully understand that. And then once CNP took over, we feel that CNP should have changed that zoning to the commercial and light industrial. We find, since they're they're not a public company, they're a private company, park and public really doesn't jive with what's going on. What our plan is continued use of this property, 380 Elm Street. CNP had it as an office and a warehouse. Port Hydro had it as an office and a warehouse. And now Jim and Sherry Cousineau plan to have it as an office and a warehouse. Do I answer questions now? Or?
Thank you, Mr. Cousineau.
There you go. Thank you. Trustee Aguirre?
Yes, stick around there, Jim, and we may have some questions for you. Mr. Aquilina?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, does any member of council have any questions to the applicant or to myself?
Members of council, any questions to staff or the applicant? With none? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. So, Dan, can you answer that for us, why he has to go through a zoning application if indeed it's always been an office and a warehouse? Just so everyone understands that if it's always been that way, why is he going through that? If you could explain that to us, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the current zoning of public and park permits the following uses: an auditorium, a public day nursery, a public park, a school, any public use. You can see based on those uses that are permitted, there's nothing there that actually says a private individual or company can operate on the property. If the property is to change hands from that utility, being a permitted use in the public and park zone, it is there no longer a public and park use. It's now a private use, and that use is actually defined as a neighborhood commercial use and as a warehouse use under the zoning bylaw and the official plan.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Councillor? That's fine. Further questions? With none? Thank you, Mr. Cousineau. Mr. Aquilina, the floor is back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to read the following before we open up the floor to those members of the public. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed zoning bylaw and official plan amendments are approved, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City of Port Colborne to the Ontario Municipal Board. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendments are approved, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Mr. Mayor, I would like to open the floor up if any member of the public wishes to address council.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Are there any members or member of the community that would like to address council on this issue? Yes, sir. Come on up. Want to state your name and your address? Yes. And the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Ryan Cook. I live at 107 Delhi Street. I abut the current property would be on the, would I be able to get the map of the property? I abut the property to, would be to my north side. As you can see, I'm 107. Currently, obviously, Canadian Niagara Power does own it and has owned it. And they, since I've owned the property for the last 7 years, they have scaled way back. As I'm sure everybody knows, it's basically just an office at the front. The warehouse portion really has been used for some storage. Other than that, it's very, very quiet. Obviously, being that they are a utility, they have the advantageous position of using that type of zone property. My concern moving ahead was obviously with the light industrial rezoning of that property, the impact it has directly on my property. And as a homeowner and as other homeowners here are concerned that the warehouse, like the actual warehouse title, doesn't really address a lot of the questions that the homeowners along that property have. Number one, obviously, the concern of traffic flow. And I guess maybe the owners or the new potential owners could answer this, but traffic flow into the building. I know that there's only one point of egress in and out of this property, and it borders that residential side of their property. Any truck traffic, any kind of tow motor noise, any type of noise is going to definitely affect any residents on that side. Hours of operation, there doesn't seem to be a lot of kind of answers in regards to this. It seems very general, and I think that's what we're concerned about. And it's not to stifle any new business coming into Port Colborne. That's the last thing that we want. However, it does need to be addressed at this point. We talked about, and I spoke with Shannon LaRock previously, and about the property and about the actual planting strip, which is in the bylaws, the Port Colborne bylaws, which now have been ripped apart by Canadian Niagara Power, and we're not exactly sure why. I've approached Canadian Niagara Power, and they've told me that basically they've done a remediation of the property. I've asked, why this was done. It hasn't been done throughout the whole property. It's been done from our property lines back. And this has actually undermined some of the trees that they have, that sit now on our property line that I share, specifically my property, 107 Del High. They've torn the root systems back, and they've remediated 15 feet back and replaced it with a loamy sand. So there's a lot of questions that I'd like to be addressed and like to be solidified before we move ahead, before council makes a decision on something like this. I think we'd like to see more specifics in regards to the warehousing aspect of what's happening, and any infrastructure changes to the property itself. Obviously, with no outdoor storage, that's the first thing we'd want, is absolutely no outdoor storage along the northern or their southern boundary, where the residents abut. So that's basically in a nutshell, but I think everybody can pretty much understand where we come from in regards to noise, noise, dust control, like just different questions. I mean, we want to know what this entails and how much traffic it's going to, and how busy it's going to be. So I don't know if the potential owners can address that or what.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Before you go anywhere, I have some questions
Sure.
for you. Members of council, any questions or comments? Councillor Bodner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I imagine Dan will get a chance to answer some of this, but I think a lot of those concerns will come under site plan control, and I just question whether that will be part of the process or some of the next steps that will be implemented.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Aquilina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the things under the site plan control bylaw that really only pertains to new development. So we'll have to take a closer look at the actual site plan control bylaw and see if we can actually apply site plan control. Everything is existing there right now. So I can't confirm 100% if site plan control is something that we can actually trigger onto the property that may be able to address some of the issues by the residents. Maybe it's a discussion we can have for the applicant to see if we can get some things on the property.
I think at the very least, if I may, Mr. Aquilina and Councillor Bodner, is to look at some of the questions, specific questions that you may have, Mr. Cook, and to submit those. And when the report does come to council, staff can possibly address all, if not some of those questions. Mr. Aquilino?
Exactly, Mr. Mayor. If the applicant, or sorry, if the, I didn't get your name. Mr. Cook would actually submit his comments to us, we will address all those and get the answers to the applicant back to council. We can actually see what issues there are, how we can possibly mitigate those.
Great, thank you. Further questions or comments? With none, thank you, Mr. Cook. I appreciate it. Are there any other comments from the members of the public on this issue? Yes, sir, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. Got my glasses somewhere.
If you can start off with your name and your address.
My name is Darrell Wise. I live at 115 Delhi Street. And my property is a little unique in that the house was built in 1924, and it was built basically right on the property line. I am 3 feet or 0.9 some meters from the property line. This is, if you get past this, that's what I have to deal with, and that was existing, and I understand that. My concern is that our proximity to a warehouse is being that much closer than our neighbors. We do not have the option of, like many of them have already done so, of erecting some kind of a barrier fence or sound deadening fence, because if we did, we wouldn't be able to get out our back door. Moving our house would be cost prohibitive, and even with a 2 meter, which I believe is the requirement, planting strip, I'm basically 9 meters from truck traffic. In a normal warehouse operation, there's going to be truck traffic, usually diesel. Drivers leave these vehicles running all the time. They never shut them off. So there'll be noise of the motors and air brakes, and neither of these violate the noise statutes, but they're still annoying and inappropriate as a regular feature in a residential neighborhood. And again, being so close to the fence, we're going to be probably more subjected to them than some other people. And unlike offices, warehouses can be, and very often are, open in non-normal business hours. They could be open 24 hours a day. Truck traffic in and out. There's nothing in the proposal except a request to change to that designation, and once the designation is given, I would assume that the owner or his tenant could operate their business in any manner they saw fit. And they could even probably, and would have to, having some knowledge of warehouse operations myself, I can't see them not coming back to council asking for a permit, or if that's required to come to council, I don't know, for a loading dock. I mean, a warehouse usually has a loading dock. This facility, as it presently stands, does not. So I can see them asking for expansion or additions to the property. Additionally, there's going to be a lot of dust and diesel fumes. That lot is unpaved. Even when the wind's blowing, we get some dust off it. So trucks running on it is definitely going to kick up dust. My wife, unfortunately, has COPD, which is a chronic lung disorder. And she has to take medication daily just to have normal breathing. And we like to open our windows and hang the washout on the line. And we think these are reasonable expectations in a residential neighborhood. We do not oppose the change to the building to be used as office premises. But we do oppose the warehouse. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Members of council, are there any questions or comments? With none, thank you once again for your time this evening. Are there any further residents that would like to speak on this issue? Come on up, sir.
Mayor, Council, my name's Mike Juvenazzo. I'm in between my two neighbors. I have many of the same concerns they have. My question is, at this point, is do I need to submit on my own, or can we do this as a collective and sort of like have one submission with our signatures?
Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, it doesn't matter. It can be individually or as a group, whatever is submitted. We are recording what comments are there, but after this meeting, if you would like to actually address them in more detail, we'll be obviously happy to answer those and report back to council.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Aquilina.
That was my question.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments or questions from members of the public? With none, Mr. Aquilina, it's back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to read the following for the record. If you wish to be notified,
Glasses.
excuse me, if you wish to be notified of the approval of the zoning bylaw and official plan amendments, you must make a written request to the clerk. Only those persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the notice of the passage of the bylaw and official plan amendment will be given such notice. There is a sign-in sheet at the back that is specifically here to put your name down, and we'll be sure that you receive notice of council's decision regarding this application. Mr. Mayor, this does conclude the public meeting under the Planning Act. I will have a recommendation report once all the comments from the members of the public can be answered properly, and then we will report back to council with a recommendation at a future meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Members of council, Mr. Cousineau?
Am I allowed to answer those questions?
Did you answer them now?
Sure.
If you want to comment on them, feel free.
It's okay. Just so that you guys have something to think about. In purchasing this property, we have a conditional offer on it to have the zoning changed or the purchase doesn't go through. So we haven't decided what we're going to do with the back warehouse, the industrial space. We're more concerned with the office space. But down the road, I want to retire. I don't know about you guys, but I want to retire. And I want to be able to sell that property and let someone use the warehouse as a warehouse. That's what it was built for. That's what it was used for the last 60 years. That's what I plan to use it for. But we don't have a renter. We don't have an owner. We don't have anything just yet. But to think that that we can possibly isolate business to the point that we have controlled hours of trucking, for example, to say that we can't use a certain size vehicle, I think those are some pretty severe restrictions for a property, which may render the whole property useless to not only me, but to anyone else who thinks about purchasing it down the road. This has been a utility company for 60 years. Diesel vehicles in and out of there at all hours of the day, all hours of the evening. I can understand if you're putting in a new property, I can see that there may be some questions. But to say that you've purchased a property adjacent to this space, I think there should be some leeway with respect or some common sense to say, I've made this purchase, I should expect to have these things in my backyard. I feel for the residents, don't get me wrong, I don't plan to make it noisier or dirtier. In fact, we plan on increasing the property value and increasing the value of the neighborhood. But to restrict what the happenings of that building, I think it is the wrong way to go.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cousineau. Thank you, Mr. Aquilina.
Thank you.
And we'll expect that report, I believe, in a few weeks, give or take. Great, thank you, Dan. Members of council, if I can have a motion to adjourn this portion of this evening's agenda. Councillor Danch, Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to the second portion of tonight's agenda, which is our Committee of the Whole meeting agenda. We're going to start off with the clerk introducing any addendum items she may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are 4 addendum items this evening. The first is a memorandum concerning an agreement with Frog in the Sock respecting the operation of Nickel Beach. The second is correspondence respecting a regional transit seniors ride for free day. The third, an email correspondence and attaching the application for zoning bylaw amendment respecting the northwest corner of Shirkston and Empire Roads. And these 3 items were circulated via addendum last Friday. And finally, there is a correction to the recommendation associated with item 3. There was an administrative error which resulted in the omission of a date for the noise bylaw exemption. So I just would like to note that as per the report, the recommendation will reflect that the temporary permit also be valid on Thursday, May 23rd from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Grigg. Members of council, if I can have a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Kenny, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? Are there any disclosures? With none, if that can be noted, Madam Clerk. As well, we'll move on now to the items requiring separate discussion. Members of council. Go to Councillor Butters, then Bodner first. Councillor Butters.
Item number 1, please.
Thank you. Councillor Bodner.
I'll speak to item 1 and also item 18.
Councillor Demery.
Items 21 and 24, please.
Councillor Kenny.
Items 2, 11, and I would like to speak to item 1 and 21 as well, Your Worship. Thank you.
2 and 11 were the ones that you want to lift it, Councillor? 2 and 11?
2 and 11, and I would like to speak to item 1 and item 21. At this time, Your Worship, I'd also like to request that item 1, because there are so many who are added to speak this evening, if item 1 could be moved down on our agenda and we could deal with these other items first. Thank you.
Council's okay with that? That's fine. Any further items? Councillor Danch?
Item 8.
Item 8. Further items? Members? I'd like to also have item 13 lifted. If one of the councillors would like to lift that. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. And there's another one here too, item 19. If somebody can lift that, that's fine. Councillor Kenny. That's it. That's it, guys? Everybody's fine? Okay, we'll now move on to the approval of the remainder of the items. That's close, but not quite. Councillor Steele, Councillor Demery, questions or comments on the remainder of the items? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. We'll now move on to our delegations. We have 2 delegations this evening. First off, we have Jillian McDonald, Chronic Disease and Injury, and Maria Brigantino, Manager of the Tobacco Program, the Niagara Region Public Health Department, regarding the proposed regional smoking bylaw. And this is on your agenda this evening, Council. And if I may request that members of Council also consider this possibly as the top one, because you may have questions for these individuals with respect to the bylaw that the region's proposing. So with that, ladies, welcome. Good to have you out.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you so much for allowing us to attend this evening's meeting to discuss this important health issue. My name is Maria Brigantino. I'm the manager of the tobacco program, and I'd like to introduce my colleague Jillian McDonald, who's a health promoter working on this initiative for Niagara Region Public Health. So the purpose of our delegation this evening is to discuss the proposed regional bylaw that restricts smoking on regional municipal outdoor property, to share results from public consultations that have been conducted through 2011 and 2012, and to discuss municipal consultations that have taken place pertaining to this bylaw and to discuss next steps. So tobacco is the only legal drug that, if used as intended, will cause negative health effects to its users. It's still the leading cause of death and disease here in Ontario and in Niagara specifically. Bylaws that restrict smoking in outdoor spaces create safer and healthier communities. The purpose of this bylaw really is to protect vulnerable populations as well as young children from exposure to secondhand smoke. We also know that bylaws that restrict smoking in outdoor settings provide positive role modeling for young people. They help to denormalize smoking behavior in our community. They help to support people who are quitting smoking or who have quit smoking. And they are good for our population generally in that it provides protection for everyone outdoors. Since 2011, Niagara Region Public Health has been supporting municipalities in their efforts to go smoke-free. We do have a number of municipalities who have either bylaws that restrict smoking in outdoor settings beyond the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, which is the provincial legislation. We also understand from municipalities that they wanted the region to take a lead role in enforcing and implementing a regional bylaw, and there were other municipalities who were also preparing regional bylaw, or excuse me, municipal bylaws that would restrict smoking in outdoor settings. So we did go to Regional Council in November of 2012, and we proposed that we receive approval to create a regional bylaw to reduce the patchwork of bylaws in Niagara and to respond to those requests from municipalities to have this be a coordinated approach. When we approached Regional Council, we suggested that the bylaw restricts smoking in all regional and municipal property. So that would include areas such as parks, playgrounds, sports fields, splash pads, bus shelters, and beaches. One of the requests from Regional Council was that we were explicit not to include roads, sidewalks, and right-of-ways in relation to any regional or municipal property. They also wanted to ensure that there was adequate municipal consultation here in Niagara, and it was the municipal consultation as well as the responses that we heard from municipalities and the public consultation that we conducted that really led us to make the recommendation back in November 2012.
So we did want to take this opportunity to highlight some of the existing bylaws restricting smoking in outdoor settings. We have 4 in Niagara, and with Niagara Falls having the most restrictive bylaw where smoking is restricted in all municipally owned properties, including parks, playgrounds, bus shelters, and entrance to city-owned buildings. So in terms of existing smoke-free legislation in Ontario, as Maria mentioned, we do have the Smoke-Free Ontario Act that does protect the public as a whole in outdoor settings that contain day nurseries and elementary and secondary schools, as well as hospitals. Unfortunately, we were not protecting children in high-use areas such as parks and playgrounds. So we did want to engage the public on this issue. So we did do public consultations over summer of 2012, and we had received approximately 2,000 surveys responses. And what the public told us was support is quite strong, with almost 88% of Niagara residents supporting some level of restriction in outdoor settings. And these were in areas, the strongest support was where children were at play. Interesting enough, 94% of visitors to the Niagara region indicated that they also support restricting smoking in outdoor settings.
So with regard to implementation and enforcement, when we were conducting the municipal consultations, the enforcement issue is one of the main issues that we've discussed. What we do know from other jurisdictions, and there's over 45 other jurisdictions in Ontario specifically that have similar bylaws in place, is that the amount of complaints and concerns are actually perceived to be more than what actually happens in our community. We know from these bylaws that most people will comply to the bylaw, and that what we're hearing from other jurisdictions and people who contact us through the tobacco hotline is that people want a bylaw in place to essentially tell others not to smoke in areas where such as parks and playgrounds where children are present. So we do have a strategy, though, to deal with concerns of noncompliance and enforcement. The tobacco control officers who are employed by Niagara Region Public Health and who enforce the Smoke-Free Ontario Act would be primarily responsible for enforcing the bylaw. We would have municipal authority for municipal bylaw officers to enforce the legislation. Should there be support from the municipality, should there be capacity at the municipality level, and as well we will have a strong referral process in place so that we can work with municipalities to get compliance in areas that might be concerning for the municipality, or we've heard from complaints from the public that are of concern. In terms of implementation, education is key to getting compliance for this bylaw. And so what we would be looking at is developing a one-year intensive communication strategy. It will be sustained moving forward. That education would then translate to warnings for people who are not compliant. Warnings would have no monetary fine associated with them. And then a year after implementation, we would be looking at enforcement, and the fine that we are recommending is $250, which is consistent with the Smoke-Free Ontario Act and other jurisdictions who have similar legislation, with the court fees that are applied by the Provincial Offences Court. That does result in a $305 fine. So in terms of next steps, we have provided a couple of reports and a couple drafts of a regional bylaw to our Public Health and Social Services Committee for their feedback and recommendations. At our last April 9th meeting, the feedback from Public Health and Social Services Committee is that they wanted to hear from municipalities and wanted to receive feedback in writing. So what has happened is our regional clerk has contacted regional clerks of all local area municipalities with a copy of the bylaw as well as a copy of the report, and is requesting feedback by June 30th, 2013. We will then review the feedback from all municipalities and move forward with a report to Public Health and Social Services Committee in the fall of 2013 with a new report and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Well done. Members of council, any questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few. So you're not actually asking us tonight to deal with this. This is going to come back to us at a later date. Is that what you're?
Ladies.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this delegation is for information only.
Okay.
The June 30th request is for your initial feedback. What is required for this to become a regional bylaw is a triple majority vote. So if that's, so the next steps would require Public Health and Social Services Committee to provide approval, Regional Council to provide triple majority, and then it would come to all local area municipalities for triple majority. And the resolutions coming back need to also represent the majority of our Niagara population.
Okay, thank you. And just, Your Worship, just one more question of the Speaker. And the costs associated with this, there'll be costs associated with for signage and everything at all parks. Will the municipality bear those costs, or will the region be supporting that? There's costs. I know there's smoking police with the Niagara health system. They monitor every now and then the entrances because you have to be so many meters away, and even though they say no smoking on that property, people do tend to go out and have a cigarette. And what I'm asking you, will there be any cost borne by each individual municipality, to your knowledge?
Thank you, Councillor. Ladies.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the costs associated with the bylaw, communications, signage, and enforcement will be bared by the Niagara region. We have provided those costing details to Public Health and Social Services Committee. We have received advice from each municipality around signage placement, how much is required. We are asking that municipalities post the signs, but the fiscal cost associated with producing the signs will be absorbed by the Niagara region. Thank you.
Okay. Further questions, comments? Councillor Bodner.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the presenters, just on the enforcement side, will our bylaw people be able to enforce that also? Because I'm just thinking that, by the time the regional people get here, some will be long gone. So just so we're clear on that, our bylaw people will be able to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Bodner. Ladies.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, municipal bylaw officers will have the authority written into the bylaw to enforce. We do recognize that time sensitivity may be an issue with enforcement, and so we have developed a complaint-based enforcement strategy that would essentially flag for us that if we receive 3 complaints to one location, that we would need to do some proactive enforcement at that location and also look at communications, adequate signage, and strategies to mitigate any issues.
That's fine. Further questions, comments, members? Just a few questions I have. With respect to Niagara Falls, you mentioned the falls is it's going to be all encompassing throughout the entire city. Would the Niagara Parks Commission be a part of that?
To you, Mr. Mayor, the Niagara Parks Commission and Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority at this time are not part of this bylaw. We have shared the information with them and copies of the reports. And there are, of course, members of council that are also represented on those boards. At this time, though, the scope of this bylaw is specific to just regional and municipal owned property.
Okay, so essentially, if this bylaw is put in place regionally, then that would be still a smoking area along the Niagara Parks Commission.
That's correct. And of course, if there was interest by those organizations to move smoke-free, we would certainly support that.
Great, thank you, thank you. And not so much a question, but a comment to members of council. I deliberately brought this report before you this evening with the intent to give you a good read on it. Actually, I was the one at Public Health that wanted to refer this back to municipalities because of the implications it has. Now, that's not to say I don't support it. I do support it. I think it's the proper direction to go into region-wide. However, we do want to ensure that each and every council recognizes the implications. I think it goes without saying that the obvious implications are a good thing with respect to the parks and where kids are playing and places like that. But I want you to know, especially here in Port Colborne, because there are some anomalies here in comparison to the rest of the region with respect to special events. Canal Days, for example, no smoking. And I want you to be aware of that, so you don't get the calls after the fact. This is before the fact. With the beaches, with Shirks and Shores, as well as Nickel Beach and areas like that. Again, I want you to be aware as members of council that if this bylaw is passed, it does have implications for those areas as well. If you want to speak on that as well, just to confirm that, and therefore, members of council, when you're passing this bylaw, you're fully aware of what you're actually passing. Any comment, girls?
So through you, or to you, Mr. Mayor, and to members of council, so the bylaw is location-based. So if the municipality or the region owns that parcel of land, then the bylaw would apply regardless of the event or what the space is being used for. I would like to remind you that sidewalks, roadways, I know that often events and things take place on these areas would not be affected by the bylaw. And any privately owned properties, beach property or otherwise, would not be affected by the bylaw.
Good, thank you. Councilor Bodner, that was your question, wasn't it?
That was my question. So Shirks and Shores privately owned would not be affected by this, only municipally owned properties or regionally owned properties?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, now how about, and this is a question through you, girls, maybe to Mr. Hakeem. Now, Nickel Beach is owned technically by Valley, leased by the city. Would that be considered privately owned or city?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so how the bylaw is written right now, and if you haven't received a copy of the bylaw, I assume you will be, it does speak to any properties that are owned, leased, or operated by the region or the municipality.
Gotcha. Okay, so as long as it's operated, regardless of who owns it.
That's correct.
Okay. So members of council, as was mentioned by our fine ladies from the region, we don't have to pass this tonight. It is here for you as information. And what I would request that you, in fact, do when we get to this part of our agenda is refer it back to staff for a possible report from Community Services, because that's who's going to have it's going to be the biggest impact on you, Harry. So to have Harry come back, Mr. Hakeem come back with a report back to council, and hopefully by the end of June deadline, we can have our decision brought back to the region. Okay? Any further questions or comments to the presenters? Any further comments from you ladies?
No, we are available if you'd like to invite us back or direct any questions to our attention, and we're happy to work through this process with you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, girls. Well done. And take care of that foot, eh? Members of council, we're now going to call upon Pat Davis, and I see Vicki Moreland's with her. So Vicki, if you want to come on up too and join her. No? She's good on her own? She's shy. Pat's the president of Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet, and she's going to speak to us with respect to May is Community Living Awareness Month. It's in your agenda, members of council, on page 35. Pat, as always, welcome.
Thank you. Mayor Badaway, members of council, city staff, and citizens of Port Colborne. May is Community Living Awareness Month. In past years, the president or executive director, who is hiding in about the third row back there, of the association has taken the opportunity to come to City Council and to share with you the happenings that have been happening in community living Port Colborne Wainfleet. We've talked about a wide range of supports and services we provide for more than 200 children and adults who have an intellectual disability so that they may experience meaningful lives. We've updated you on our capital projects, residential expansions, fundraising efforts, special events, and projects. Most importantly, we have taken the opportunity to advocate for people with disabilities and to discuss the importance of our mission, which is to enable and support people to achieve their desired quality of life in partnership with an inclusive community. Last year, we took the opportunity to tell you about our plans to celebrate our 50th anniversary. While we are always happy to tell you about the programs we provide for the people in our services, I would like to talk to you a few minutes about the role we play as a business partner and our significance as a corporate partner in the community. We provide responsible stewardship for a budget of more than $7 million a year. We are funded primarily through provincial subsidies, program fees, donations, and fundraising. We have been very fortunate to have additional in-year funding for our programs for children and teens through various provincial grants, in addition to the United Way of South Niagara, the Niagara Community Foundation, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and the Port Colborne Hydro Foundation. Without these additional grants, we would not be able to offer programs for children that we support. We contribute to our local community in a number of ways. 85% of our $7 million budget goes to pay the wages and benefits of 130 amazing employees. As much as possible, we try to be good corporate citizens by buying from local stores and using the services of local businesses. We pay municipal taxes on our Centre for Community Living on McCrae Street on the east side. We have partnered with many local and regional agencies. For several years, we have hosted the YMCA in our centre for their summer day camp. Currently, we partner with the Boys and Girls Club of Niagara to host their after-school program from September to June and their summer day camp program. This summer, we will also partner with Port Cares to run the Fun in the Sun playground program at the East Village Park. The past few years have been challenging financially due to Ontario's deficit and poor economy, which has resulted in a provincial funding freeze for the developmental service sector. We are working hard to find creative ways to accommodate this financial crisis and minimize the impact on our employees and the people and families we support. We have been supporting people in accomplishing their goals and dreams now for 51 years. Throughout these years, Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet has helped people to move from institutions into the community, supported people to live independently, built significant relationships, found employment, and assisted the furthering of their education. Our vision is a community where everyone belongs, because we sincerely believe that through community inclusion and opportunity, our community can benefit all the abilities of all its citizens. We want to thank, you haven't done it yet, I don't think, but we want to thank you for proclaiming us, proclaiming this Community Living Month. Thank you so much. We know you're going to. And for having us here tonight, which you do every year, and we thank you so much for the opportunity to share the things that we do in the community as part of Port Colborne and Wainfleet. We also would like to encourage everyone in Port Colborne to celebrate Community Living Awareness Month by including someone you know that has an intellectual ability in our community in the social events and activities that are going on here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Well done. Any questions or comments from members of council? With none, and before I move on, I do want to congratulate Vicki and Pat and the entire team over at Community Living. You guys just do a yeoman's job in terms of the services that you provide your clients. As well, yes, we do have your flag flying downstairs on the flagpole, as well as we are going to be dedicating May as Community Living Month later on in the agenda during our council portion of this evening's agenda. But good on you, well done. The things that you do have just brought us light years ahead in comparison to where we were many years ago with respect to ensuring that we are a community where everybody belongs. And I do want to today officially thank you for that here publicly, because you deserve at the very least that appreciation, but tons more in terms of the work that you folks do over there. I have seen you firsthand on what you do over there, and once again, good on you. You guys are doing a great job, and keep up the great work here in the city of Port Colborne. Thank you. With that, members of council, we'll move on from delegations and now move into our reports. I got a short report for you this evening. Chief, if you want to come on up here. As most members of the community will recognize, at least those that cross the bridge on occasion, we have some challenges with respect to our 3 bridges here in the city of Port Colborne. And I think for the most part, the last 3 days were a perfect example of what happens in the city of Port Colborne when we go down to 2, possibly even 1 bridge. And I wanted to publicly acknowledge the fact that, yes, Bridge 21 is in fact down right now. It went down on Saturday evening or Saturday afternoon, and it's really put this municipality, especially with 19A, the middle bridge, also down for updates in a real predicament with respect to traffic. We have been in consistent discussion with both the St. Lawrence Seaway as well as emergency services throughout the past many days. And I have the following to report to the public. And I'm going to allow the chief to get into the other specifics with respect to emergency services. Yes, they are working on Bridge 21 right now. They have assessed most of the problem of Bridge 21, and we were hoping they would get it fixed by the end of today. However, that didn't happen, and it probably won't happen until hopefully by the end of tomorrow. However, with big machines like that break, we are trying to be patient with respect to them hopefully getting it done sooner rather than later. With that said, we have had their cooperation on reopening 19A, although it wasn't supposed to open back up until the 17th. They have made concessions and have made 19A at least available with single lane traffic both ways, and signal people, I'll call them flag people, that are helping traffic along in that middle bridge area. That will continue. That will continue with both 19, the Main Street Bridge, as well as 19A, the Mallenby Street Bridge, Mallenby Avenue Bridge, will continue to operate until Bridge 21 is repaired. I think the key right now is to continue to work with the Seaway to get Bridge 21 repaired. And I think what's most important right now is the direction the chief has taken with both his department, the fire department, as well as with emergency medical services, which is our ambulances, as well as with the Niagara Regional Police. So with that, Chief, I'll leave it. The floor is yours.
Your Worship, thank you, and members of council, senior staff, and public. It's nice to see everybody here tonight for another reason, but most of you probably live on the east side, so certainly this information is applicable to you. The city was notified at about 9 o'clock on Saturday night. I was in St. Catharines when I received a phone call from my duty officer and was informed that we had an issue with the 2 bridges, leaving us only 1 that would allow us to get to the east side. I immediately returned to the city and had notified the mayor and the CIO of the situation as to what was going on. I coordinated a meeting with the EMS, the police, and the Seaway Authority at the fire station, and we were able to set up a system that the communications centers for all of those groups were able to communicate with the Seaway Authority so that we would ensure that we had bridge accessibility at all times. The Seaway Authority didn't allow shipping to transverse the canal during the course of this time. They held up the ships. We had 7 lined up at midnight until such time as they were able to get 19A, which is the middle bridge, back into somewhat of a serviceable condition so that emergency vehicles could access the east side as well as the main street. We were satisfied with that at that particular time. And over the course of that evening, they were able to, once they got 19A working, they were able to clear the shipping traffic. We also were able to determine that during the course of Sunday, that they expected another 4 vessels to have to access the canal system. The Seaway Authority was able to provide us with that information. The Emergency services, so on the Sunday at 10 o'clock, we put 2 vehicles on the east side at the old fire station, and we put a crew over there, as well as the volunteers that live over there were asked to stay in that particular area so they could respond directly to the station. And as well as that, I had spoken with the regional fire coordinator to ensure that we had backups from other municipalities on either side of us if in the event we had a significant event take place. So that was taken care of. The police did likewise by making sure they had backup from Welland and or Fort Erie, as well as EMS did likewise for both the east and the west side. They kept an ambulance on the west side because their station is on the east side. So we ensured that the public would get services if needed. We were fortunate nothing significant happened. We did have a couple of accidents late in the day Sunday. We were able to deal with those issues with no significant delay whatsoever. All of those took place on the west side. I will say that as of 5 o'clock today, I got an email from our public information officer, who also is the mayor's assistant, Nancy Giles, from the Seaway, indicating that they hope to have Bridge 21 back in service tomorrow if everything goes well as planned. You need to understand that 19A was under construction, as the mayor alluded to earlier, so they worked feverishly during Saturday night to get it into a position where we could use it for emergency purposes. There also was an issue with lighting during the course of today. They couldn't coordinate the traffic directional signals that were on the east and west side. They did get that fixed around 5 o'clock this afternoon, so hopefully we'll be back to the 2 bridges and 3 bridges by the end of tomorrow. That's the short story as to what happened. A lot of other things occurred over that period of time, but I'm not going to bore you with all the details.
Thank you, Chief. Members of council, any questions or comments? I think the message that I gave on the radio today was they are machines, they do break. Unfortunately, this one put us in a real predicament because of the work that was happening on 19A. But we're dealing with it, and hopefully it'll be all back to normal by this time tomorrow. Okay? Thanks, Chief. With that, we'll now move on to the Regional Council's report. Councillor Barrick, welcome.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can appreciate the good folks here this evening are not here to listen to my Regional Council's report, so I'll duly condense it. I did want to give Council an update on the CAO recruitment process at the region. That is now underway. I will be part of that process, and I will be keeping this Council updated moving forward. The other activities of the past week included the region's Niagara Week. It's our 9th annual. That's when Niagara staff, senior staff, and politicians go to Queen's Park to lobby the Premier, ministers, deputy ministers. I personally met with the Premier, the Deputy Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Labour, amongst others. Some of what we talked about or lobbied for Niagara includes the new 3rd Street interchange. The 3rd Avenue 406 interchange is Niagara's #1 infrastructure priority for 2013. The region is seeking collaborative funding partnership with the province through 50-50 cost sharing with the province and Niagara region, $18 million each, and integration of MTO's planned 3rd Avenue overpass repairs with the proposed new Highway 406 interchange within the province's 50% contribution. The NGTA South Niagara East-West arterial route. Niagara region supports MTO's preferred alternative 4 NGTA corridor, which connects Highway 406 to the QEW. Route selection process be accelerated within preferred alternative 4 corridor in 2013, and that Highway 140 be expanded by 2 lanes between East Main Street Tunnel and the selected new route within MTO's preferred corridor. One that I'm particularly passionate about, but I won't go at length here, is the Niagara Industrial Power Cluster Program. And that is that Niagara manufacturers request to implement a Niagara Industrial Power Cluster Program, which features a 2-cent kilowatt-hour cost rebate for Niagara-based manufacturers who qualify. Manufacturers would qualify if electricity costs represent more than 7.5% of their total fixed costs. It would be offered to existing manufacturers and new investors within 50 kilometers of the Beck Hydroelectric Station, which would include Port Colborne. And we support a proposed 10-year program commitment, not unlike the Northern Ontario program that the province already has in place. Other items we lobbied for is the Niagara Pilot Program for Employment Services, GO Transit expansion, in particular for the 2015 Pan American Games, which will be hosted in Niagara. Interest arbitration, the Niagara Casino tax rate stabilization, Gateway Economic Zone and Center, as well as the Greenbelt Review 2014. So that's my condensed report this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Barrick. Members of council, any questions or comments? With none, thank you, David. Members, we're now going to move on to councillors' items, new business. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's come to my attention over the last few weeks some issues surrounding what are legal medicinal marijuana operations and Health Canada. So conversation with Councillor Bodner and Lyle Merritt, CBO, we would like to request a report be made back to us from staff regarding this issue so that we can be fully informed for decisions that are probably on our near horizon.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor. Members of council, is that fine with you? Ask staff to come back. Mr. Aquilina, that's fine?
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. I've had the discussion with Councillor Butters, and I look forward to writing the report for information both for myself and for the city of Port Colborne.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Further new business? Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a good news story. The East Village Action Committee recently had their 3rd annual garage sale, and it was quite a success. Flowing from that, there were some Martha Washington geraniums left over, 36 plants, very nice plants, and working with the city staff, we've arranged to have those planted in the East Village Park. So that's it's going to be a nice addition. Along with that, the Horticultural Society has let us know that they've received funding to plant a tree for East Village Park, sorry. So they're going to be working with staff to choose which tree and where that should go. So it's all good news.
Thank you, Councillor Desmarais. Further new business? Councillors' items. With none, we'll now move on to the adoption of the minutes. I do have one set of minutes here, members of council, and I'll be looking for a mover and seconder. The minutes of the 12th meeting regular of Committee of the Whole, dated April 22nd, 2013. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Kenny. Any questions or comments? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to the consideration of items requiring separate discussion. And before I get into that, Councillor Elliott, welcome. And you had a declaration to make.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have a conflict on item number 3, I believe it is, as I participate in the event that's mentioned in the report.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Elliott, and that'll be so noted by the clerk's office. With that, members of council, we'll now get right into it. We're going to start off with Councillor Kenny. You made a request to go into all the other items first. Members of council are fine with that. So we'll start off with item 2. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the Council for the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne approves the attached bylaw pursuant to Section 132 of the Municipal Act as to grant reasonable access to private property for the maintenance of an abutting property. That the clerk be directed to execute the bylaw attached to CAO Report Number 2013-02.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that recommendation, please? Councillor Danch. Questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you once again, Your Worship. I don't know if Darcy Cooley is in the audience. Are you here, Darcy? There you are. I think you should stand up. I just wanted to acknowledge to council that it was because of this taxpayer that we are looking at this bylaw tonight. And it was great that she came to me and spoke to me as she was trying to get some work done on her house, had 3 sides of her house done and couldn't get the 4th side done because she needed access to an abutting property, which was her neighbor. And we did not have a bylaw in effect in the city of Port Colborne. I brought this to the attention of our CAO, Mr. Hall, I want to thank you as well, and the city clerk. And now before us, we have a bylaw that was, I hope, council will pass unanimously because it affects the entire city. And really, Darcy, because of your foresight to bring that forward and the work of our CAO and our clerk, we now have this bylaw which will not only help you, but help anybody else in the city of Port Colborne. So I want to thank you for that. And again, I hope council will support this.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Any further questions or comments? All I got to say is, so you're the one. As well, thank you. We're all following that email trail between the counselor as well as staff, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. Very much appreciated. Members of council, without any further questions or comments on this, your pleasure to the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item. We have item 6, Councillor Danch. I'm sorry, I'm item 8. That's my eyesight again. Yeah, we're going to have to. Yeah, let's do that while you're looking for that, Frank. His conflict he just brought up, we have to bring that up. Although, Madam Clerk, that was already voted on. He wasn't here, so is that our, should we lift it still?
My recommendation is that you don't lift it.
Just leave it alone? He's already declared it? That's fine, Councillor Bodnar. Thank you for bringing it up. And thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Danch, item 8.
Eventually, we will learn how to use these things, right?
If you save it under pages, you don't have to scroll. You can just pick the bottom.
I just need to make it a little bit bigger. That the Council of the City of Port Colborne award quotation 2013-05, the supply of a new truck cab and chassis to Scarborough Isuzu trucks for the total quota price of $53,671 plus applicable taxes. That the Council of the City of Port Colborne award quotation 2012-27, the supply of a new valve turning exerciser vacuum machine to, can't say it, Watches Canada Limited for the total quota price of $84,887 plus applicable taxes. That the funding of the equipment be finalized under amount 3595-33103-3401 water equipment replacement. The staff be authorized to issue a purchase order to the appropriate vendors for the amounts detailed in this report.
Thank you, Councillor Danch. Seconder to that, please. Councillor Desmarais, questions or comments? Councillor Danch.
And I talked briefly with Ron today and a little bit with Chris, and my biggest question was, it doesn't seem like that specialized of a vehicle. It looks like a little 3-ton truck to me. Why are we purchasing it in Scarborough when we've got places close by with maybe emblems that signify North American built? And I hear the closest place for any type of warranty work would be Stony Creek. A long way to go. It would generally be 2 guys if we did have some warranty. And I just really wonder why it didn't say International, Mack, GMC, Dodge, something like that. It doesn't look like a specialized truck, and that's really my only concern.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hanson.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Danch. We went out to 13 suppliers of vehicles that could meet this specification. They all represented 3 different types of trucks that were specified. And actually, Scarborough Isuzu also makes international trucks as well as some of the local suppliers. Unfortunately, International doesn't make a vehicle that meets our specification. They don't make one that's small enough to handle this special equipment. So there was a bid in from a Hamilton supplier as well as a Scarborough supplier. That truck from the Hamilton area did not meet our specification, which brought us down to the Scarborough Isuzu, and it's exactly the type of vehicle that was specified. Spec on that is it's a Class 5 cab over crew cab, and the manufacturers are Fuso, Hino, and Isuzu. And that meets the specification for carrying this equipment. This equipment's about 8,500 pounds total, and that was the best supplier available that meets the specification. The Stony Creek maintenance isn't a big issue for us. It's close enough that it won't create any problems under the warranty issues.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Councillor?
People ask questions, I ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Danch, and thank you, Mr. Hanson. Further questions or comments on this issue? With none, your pleasure. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 11. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you once again, Your Worship. The Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Marketing Report number 2013-05, subject Economic Development Strategy Implementation Funding, that the Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to enter into an agreement to accept the $45,000 grant and proceed with the associated activities, and that the funding outlined from the 2013 and 2014 budget and reserve be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Elliott. Mr. Thompson.
Can I just ask one question just
Sure, go ahead, Councillor.
because I know he's going to speak to it, and I'm happy that he's here to speak to it. But if some of you wonder why we carry these have our whole package on. Our package this week was 1,006 pages. Before, they used to print that on paper, and every single one of us used to get, well, we would have got packages, but it was 106 pages times 9 plus staff. So now we have these marvelous little things that we're still trying to figure out, especially when you're not like really keen on it. But this was a good news item, Stephen. And I'd be happy for you to explain that. Thanks. But I just want to tell people that, yeah, we have problems sometimes operating it, but it's all there. Thanks.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, through you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to this report. Yes, it is indeed a great news item. It is $45,000 in funding from an upper level of government. The funding is to do further work implementing our economic development strategy, which hopefully all members of council have. It is an economic development strategy that was adopted by council 3 or 4 years ago, coming up on 4 years, I guess. One of the primary areas of focus of the strategy is on business retention and expansion, and ensuring that our existing businesses do have the resources and expertise to be able to advance within our community and create greater wealth and greater employment. So that's the major focus of this project. It also is a project where the second component is looking at whether there are gaps between the types of jobs that are available in the community and the skill sets of our workforce, to try to find opportunities to attract new employers to the community that can be employers that can employ our local residents. And the third main piece of the project is to better market the available industrial and commercial real estate within Port Colborne. We're in a situation now of limited availability of certain types of commercial and industrial buildings, which while in many ways is a positive thing, is also a challenging thing as we continue to attract new employers. And this new system that will be funded through this project will enable us to be able to do quite sophisticated demographic and other map-based analysis to be able to provide information not just about our own city of Port Colborne, but about the workforce in surrounding communities as well within a certain radius of available properties. So stay tuned. The funding source is eager to make a public announcement in terms of the grant, and stay tuned, and we'll let everyone know.
Great, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Further questions or comments? That would be questions or comments? With none, Stephen, well done. Great job on the application. And members of council, your pleasure to the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 13. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is that the correspondence received from the Region of Niagara a regional bylaw to regulate smoking in an outdoor public place, revised report PHD 05-2013, requesting City Council comments, and that the correspondence received from the Mayor's office be a regional bylaw to regulate smoking in an outdoor public place report, and that the PowerPoint presentation be a regional bylaw to regulate smoking in an outdoor public place be received, and that City Council supports the report and draft bylaw.
Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Danch. As I stated earlier, members of council, you have a choice. You can if you feel comfortable. Let me just back up for a second. When I was at Public Health of the region, I really felt strong to send this back to all the municipalities, because it does need triple majority, but more importantly is for each individual council to understand the implications. Again, I support this direction. I really do, and I think with some of the comments that we've been hearing from some of the residents about simply walking into the Valley Center through a cloud of smoke, which will give you an idea of why I support this, or any other park or sport field, etc. However, as I said earlier, I really want you as members of council to understand what you're passing and the implication of same. So may I suggest that you refer this back to Community Services so that Harry can give you the full breadth of what the implications may in fact be, and then therefore you go into this with your eyes wide open and you're not reacting to something after it's passed with respect to, I didn't know that, or I wasn't aware of that, with respect to some of the anomalies that may exist here in the city. It was clarified today about Shirks and Shores, as well as any other entity that may operate on the city's behalf or by the city, which I appreciate the presenters on presenting to us. But again, I think it's very important for each of the 12 municipalities to fully understand this wide scope or this wide reaching bylaw, which is going to be regional. So with that, I would recommend that to members of council to send it back and refer it for a report back at the next cycle, at the next council meeting, if that would be fine, Harry? Because they like to have this by the end of June, so that's the time frame that we have. First meeting in June? That's fine. If you can get the first meeting in June. And that way we can, David and I can bring it back, hopefully with support, but again, with your eyes wide open with respect to supporting or not supporting this bylaw. So with that, I'll leave it to council. Councillor Bodnar. Can you see me? No, no. That ain't happening.
Thank you. Can I ask, to remind me, do we have a Canal Days committee meeting before that report will come back? Because I think this should also go to
We
Canal
actually have a
Days,
meeting
so-
this Wednesday for Canal
Good.
Days.
Okay, so then that could be sent to, can we get the information to people before that meeting?
Mr. Hakeem?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Councillor Bodnar, yes, we will. We'll get this package over to the committee if we can tomorrow. If not, we'll present it by hard copy.
I think as well, Mr. Hakeem, is the implications, really highlight the implications of the package to the committee. I think it was alleviated to some extent today in terms of the implications on that event, that the roadways and the sidewalks wouldn't be, but we may want to actually have that as part of the bylaw. So I think both the committee and council should be aware of that.
I think the consultation that we'll have perhaps, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, Your Worship, with user groups and the committee and other members of the community will be helpful for us, particularly with the information that the Regional Public Health has provided and some of the background material I've had an opportunity to review. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting report, certainly to present.
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. Further questions or comments, members? Councillor Steele.
So, Your Worship, then we should make an amendment to the last line to delete that and add in that we refer this to.
You can just simply make a referral motion.
Okay, I'll motion that we refer it to Harry's department.
Okay, for a report back to council the first week in June? Correct. Great, thank you, Councillor Steele. Seconder, Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments on that? As it is a referral, and I'll allow any questions or comments. With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Harry, any questions? You're fine? You're good? Bob, any questions? You're good? Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to item 18. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Roselawn Center for the Arts, submission by Friends of Roselawn Group, Roselawn Operational Report, that the correspondence received from Roselawn Center for the Arts, submission by Friends of the Roselawn Group, Roselawn Operation Report be received, and that city staff continue to work with Friends of Roselawn to assist in the development of a blueprint for the enhanced uses of the city's community center and theater.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Danch. Questions or comments to that? Councillor Bodnar.
1 second, Mr. Mayor, trying to get to the page here. How about 511? There we go. Mr. Mayor, there is a letter that came from Bill Thomas, and I won't read the whole letter, and Friends of the Roselawn. It's been in the paper and in a number of different publications. But I'd just like to, for the members of the public, Friends of the Roselawn Group, just like to read their vision statement, creating a home for arts and entertainment at the Roselawn to ensure a vibrant cultural life for our community. That's kind of the goal of the Friends of the Roselawn. And I think it's important that that people are questioning who these people are. A bunch of crazy people that want to see arts and culture come in the city of Port Colborne. They're not all crazy. Well, maybe a couple of us, but you know, most of them are pretty good. Can I just read a? Well, I could if it didn't disappear. Sorry. Sorry, folks, member of the public, technically challenged here. No, I got it. I think cancel. Hard copy would be really good, Mr. Mayor. It's looking good to me. How does that go black over there like that? I'm feeling really dumb right now, but it. So I'll just read just something out of this this letter that came, and just to give you a flavor for what. The Roselawn Center is one-of-a-kind cultural center with the unlimited potential to host musical reviews, winter theater, cinema, cooking classes, a jazz series, a blues festival, hot docs, weekend arts festival, educational classes, children's musical and visual arts exhibitions, and certainly it's a theater with a first-class stage venue. And I'll tell you why that's important. And certainly the most successful communities are those that good employees want to move to enjoy a variety of experiences such as sports and recreation, but also arts and cultural activities. And culture is not just about arts and music and literature, although it usually takes those forms of presentation. Culture is really about the pride a community takes in sharing the talents of their neighbors and their grandkids. While the new and fantastic Vail Health and Wellness Center will offer us the building blocks to better health and the high drama of sports, the cultural jewel that the Roseland Center will serve as the soul of this city. While the new YMCA can help our hearts grow stronger, the Roseland Center can lift our spirits and enlighten our minds and color our thinking with great imagination and unlimited optimism. One great play, an unforgettable concert, and an encounter with an amazing author can change your life for the better and enhance our well-being forever. But more importantly, it can impress our children enough to set them off on highly creative career paths. The job market for the arts has only begun to grow. A town that produces a professional hockey player is a hockey town. A place that raises an NHLer, a concert pianist, an award-winning writer, a renowned band leader, that's a town with perfect balance. A collective of open minds and a place of refinement with the potential to do great things. That's the community employees want to move to and companies want to relocate to. Indeed, most of them are now moving in our direction. Mr. Mayor, that gives you a flavor of what the Friends of Roseland envision the Roseland Center to be. Am I asked this evening of the council, I know we've directed, or we're about to direct staff to work with Friends of Roseland, but I think we may want to take it one step further. You heard me allude to the possibility of a jazz series, and also there are a couple of other series that we're looking at, blues series, and these have to be booked now for the fall time, next fall. And I think that arts and culture doesn't always fit in this nice box we want to put it in, like finance will have a heart attack when, I tell them this, but, and also we have certain limits at the Roseland where we have rental rates already established. And I think as a council, we'll be looking at that in the near future. But I wonder if we could allow staff to work with these groups that want to bring on these festivals. 3, I'm pretty sure that can happen. But it may take some creative doing, either a partnership with the city, sponsors in the city doing it. And I think we have a great opportunity to do this. I just wonder whether council would give staff a direction where they could work with these groups, come back with a report for council's blessing, and just make this work, because I think this is a fabulous opportunity. And I think often when a blues or jazz want to put on something new, they don't want to have a risk of a financial risk. They would be willing to share it. and I'm sure it could be structured. I don't want to certainly negotiate on camera, but there's ways for it structured. If everybody does good, there's more for the city and everything. But I really think that if we're serious about getting these series up and running in the fall, we got to act now, and we can't wait till budget time to really do it that way. So I just wonder whether council would consider having staff work with these groups, bring a report back to council, just see what the details are, and give everybody a chance to see whether we can make this work.
Thank you, Councillor Bodner. Well stated. Before I go to council, I'm going to ask staff, because there has been a great deal of work that's been done in the past few weeks, months, with Friends of the Roselawn. I'm going to allow Mr. Howell to speak first, and just to get your thoughts together, Mr. Hakeem, I'm going to come to you next. Mr. Howell.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's been some discussions in my office with some of the members of this about opportunities for special types of events, jazz festival or blues or country and western or something, to try to keep basically it's a community hall with a theater, is what the city owns. I don't mean to trivialize Roselawn Center, but it really is a community hall for rent. And when there was an announcement that we may lose our major tenant, there was an issue. But there are some wonderful ideas coming out right now, Your Worship, and I think rather than simply saying, the rent for this theater is $600, there may be some opportunity and options, as was suggested by Councillor Bodner, to perhaps do some cooperative work to make sure there's people in that building, that it's not sitting empty. And that's part of the discussion right now. I think that Councillor Bodner's suggestion, and with council approval and direction, Your Worship, we'd be very happy to bring back a report on that line. And then to this point, there is, as Your Worship noted, a significant amount of work that we have been doing, and Mr. Hakeem can report on that.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Mr. Hakeem.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Bodner and members of council and the CAO. Actually, just from a statistical standpoint, this year, in the first 4 months of operation at Roselawn, we've hosted in excess of 32 plus 8 recurring events so far this year, compared to 2011 and 2012, where we hosted a total of 36 and 42. So we're well in excess of our involvement with the community and community groups that are making use of the facility on a recurring basis, or performance rentals and things of that nature. Some of the things that Councillor Bodner alludes to, absolutely, we could explore, we could work with, we could certainly get into some discussion, whether it's an agreement, whether it's a cooperative, whether it's a sponsorship venture. Part of the challenge we have is obviously, retooling the operations at Roselawn Center and some of the activities that are going on there. Our preferred method of working with community groups and performances and groups of that nature, such as Lighthouse Festival Theatre coming in under Showboat, is that we rented out the facility. We were able to facilitate them in every aspect. They're paying basically for everything that is going to be involved with the operation of the theatre and all the presentations. There is a cost recovery that we've worked on diligently in terms of everything, including some partial staffing costs to return, so that we're not out of pocket. So it's going to generate some source of revenue as far as what I think a good business model should encompass. But working with that in mind, there's no question we can work with Friends of Roselawn and some of the ideas that are being presented. We're getting calls daily on requests for rentals. The regional regional government has come in on 2 or 3 occasions already. And we've hosted some weekend rentals. And again, we're trying to do it where we're facilitating and keeping our costs down at the same time. And I think we're achieving that, and hopefully the budget will reflect that as we progress. But there's certainly room for opportunities to discuss all those things, particularly the list of events. In fact, I had 2 phone calls today about something along those lines. So we're more than receptive to that, and certainly we'll work with all the community groups and performers or any agencies that want to come in into town or locally and try and facilitate as much as possible.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. Members of Council, I'm going to be looking for some direction, and I have to say, and preface going to you by saying that I personally support the direction that Councillor Bodner has taken here. I think he's championed on behalf of Council, as well as I'm sure his own interests, with respect to the Friends of Roselawn. He's done a yeoman's job on that. Great work, Ron, and I thank you for that. For those out in the public as well as watching on COGECO, one of the main priorities that Council has put forth within our strategy, within our strategic plan actually, when we first came to office at the beginning of 2010, was to in fact create more of a fun, active, vibrant destination here in the city of Port Colborne. I think the opening of the Valley Center, you can see that. Yeah, you just take a walk into the front doors there, you can see how active and how fun and vibrant that facility is. But as well with the marina, the trails, our beaches, the different events and festivals that we have here in Port Colborne. And I think pardon me? Our skate park, yes, it is skate park that just opened. But as well to offer that balance throughout the community, not just with recreation and sport, but also, as Councillor Bodner alluded to, with the arts and culture. And regardless of who we are, how big we are, I think it goes without saying that the city of Port Colborne is a very energetic community because of a lot of the efforts and a lot of the direction that we as a community have very aggressively went toward. I want to borrow a line from Community Living, as they stated earlier. We are truly a community where everyone belongs and where everyone should visit, live, and play and work. And with that, the direction that the Friends of Roselawn are taking, and hopefully the direction that Council will take, offers that balance within the community to have even more activities available to those that visit and live here in Port Colborne. So to members of Council, to Ron, thank you. Great job. And to all those that are involved, great job. And I will now go to Council with direction. Ron, you want to lead that charge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to say, since I've been on council in '98, and a lot of you, some of you before that, and some of you have been there since then, you know, I've seen councils in this city do some pretty creative things. Unusual sometimes, but very creative. And I don't mean unusual in a bad way. It's a very good way. There's a lot of things that happen in this community that would not happen, that would not have developed if we hadn't stepped outside the box and decided that we're going to make it happen. I think this is an opportunity that's going to take a little more creative thinking than looking at a list and saying it's worth this much money to rent. And that's really where I'm going with this, and I hope that council will simply instruct staff to work in the direction of, I'm sure Mr. Heil could word this much better, but I'll throw some words out there, you know, to work in the direction of getting these series up and running. And I'm not saying at whatever it takes, but I'm saying to work with these groups to see in the initial stages whether we can actually get them started with the hopes that we're going to see this run for a long time. So basically, that's kind of what I'm asking for.
Yeah, do you have a time frame, Ron? Do you want that back to Council on?
Well, I guess, you know, Harry rightly says that we're starting to book up this facility very heavily. It'd be a shame if the Jazz Series had a certain time that they wanted to be in there and we booked the wedding. Not that weddings aren't welcome there, but you know what I mean? There is some urgency to it. So, and I understand staff's under some pressure, so the sooner the better, I'll say that. Could it be done by the end of June? I'll throw that at staff.
Thank you, Councillor. Harry? Your schedule's getting filled, isn't it? End of June?
Through your worship to Councillor Bodner, we can do our best. In fact, I would prefer to meet with the groups or organizations that have perhaps a timetable. I mean, June, I'm going to presume, actually confirm this, June 24th would be the next council meeting?
June 24th?
I'm thinking that far ahead, right?
Yeah. That's
okay.
Right.
I think it would be important to meet with those organizations to get an idea about their timetable, their needs. There may be some things we can facilitate, perhaps not. Again, I touched on it earlier, we have met with a few groups, and certainly, you know, if it's within our means and capability, we'll do the best we can. But I can certainly try and meet that deadline for June 24th.
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. Okay, so we might be looking at the first week in July, Ron? Yeah, because this, okay, so how's July 8th? Is that better? Okay, so July 8th, Harry?
Yeah.
Gives you another 2 weeks.
Wow. Generous.
You're welcome. Councillor Bodner?
Mr. Mayor, to be fair to staff, you know, there are some groups that may come in, you know, at the last minute. I don't expect staff to, you know, drop everything and jump at that. But if a group is available now and has certain times, then, you know, I'd like them to knock them off as they come.
Good, thank you. And we do want to keep a variance on that too, for budget. We want to keep a variance on it as we move on towards the end of the year, because so that when we do go into budget, we'll have a better handle on what we're bringing in terms of our receivables. Okay, good, thank you. Members of council, that's fine with you? I'll accept that as a motion, Councillor Bodnar. Okay, do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Desmarais, are there any questions or comments to that motion? Staff's fine? Bob, you're fine? All in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. Ashley? That's good. That's how you get nervous there. I didn't want to. Okay, thank you, Councillor Bodnar. We'll now move on to item 19. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. DeWitt Carter School reuse of city picnic tables for their fun fair event on May 23rd, that the request received from DeWitt Carter Public School be refused, as the city is not in the business of supplying picnic tables, or that the school pay $311.05 or arrange to borrow the picnic tables at their cost, and an exemption from the parks policy be approved.
Thank you, members of council. So I'm not going to ask for a seconder because staff's sitting on the fence, and not that I blame you, but we will need direction from council. You do have some options here, whether you say no because it's not part of the policy, and communicate that to DeWitt Carter School. 2, have a charge to DeWitt Carter School to in fact utilize the picnic tables, and I don't believe there's many. Just a few. And lastly, simply allow them, drop them off the picnic tables. And so you got 3 options. It's at council's pleasure, and I'll ask council to give that direction. Councilor Bodnar?
I just have a question too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councilor Bodnar.
Mr. Mayor, I remember going through this years ago where we were kind of getting a little scattered, and we were, rightly or wrongly, giving stuff out to everybody, all good causes, absolutely, you know, and community events. And then we kind of reined it in just because there was, you know, it can get out of control. There's damages, there's who delivers it, who picks it up, you know. It just got a little crazy because there are a lot of events going on in the city. So, you know, great cause. You know, if I had a picnic table, I'd lend them mine, but I don't. But, you know, I just caution council, once we go this route, the lineup's going to be long.
Thank you, Councilor Bodnar. Further questions or comments? Councilor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. From the letter attached to in our report, page 517 of your council package, it sounds like they got them last year. It says, I'm asking for a favor. We were wondering if we could borrow those picnic tables again. So did they get them last year? And if they must have, the principal is saying, could we borrow them again? So if we lent them to them last year, what happened or what changed? Do we have a policy change or something happen?
Mr. Howe?
Worship, if you recall, last year DeWitt Carter came to council because it was their centennial year or homecoming year. It was a special event, and council had made the exception for last year.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councilor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to understand the cost a little better. Is the main part of this cost the labor of getting the picnic tables, taking them over and dropping them off? Or do we really see true damages?
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Hakeem? Mr. Hanson?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. The $300 is the cost of 2 men, a truck, the trailer, loading the tables on, delivering them, and then picking up after the event. It's a bare bones cost of what the labor and equipment is for it.
Councilor?
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Ron. I would like to see us make the picnic tables available, but DeWitt Carter should be responsible for going and picking them up, taking them to their site, and then returning them. It's meeting them a little more than halfway, I would think.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'll take that as a recommendation. Yes. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Yeah. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Elliott? Questions or comments? Councillor Danch?
I just wondered how many tables they were looking for. Is it some enormous amount?
It doesn't say in the letter.
No.
But if I recall last year, I think we sent between 10 or 12 over there, if I recall. But my mind's not like it used to be, so don't go by my recollection. But I think it was 10 or 12.
If it's 10 or 12 tables, I'd be willing to help out my old East Side school and use my truck and get them over there, and that would save them the $300. And I still wouldn't get a passing grade at you at Carter, but I'd certainly help them out.
There you go. Good for you, Frankie. Thank you. So we'll make that as part of the recommendation.
Good labor too, Frank.
Sponsored. And I'll give you a hand too, Frank. That's not a problem. I'm sure most of us will. But members of council, we do have a recommendation on the floor. It is seconded. Do we have any further comments or questions? And Frank, I want to thank you for that. That's very kind of you. Members of council, with no further comments, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Great. We'll now move on to item 21. Councillor Kenny. I'm sorry, Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the memorandum from Elena Kane, Events Coordinator, Beach Supervisor, Nickel Beach Agreement with Froganasock FIAS be received, and that the city clerk be authorized to prepare the appropriate bylaw entering into an agreement with Froganasock Incorporated for the operation of Nickel Beach, and that the staff prepare an amendment to the fees bylaw to alter the annual parking pass for Nickel Beach to $99 per vehicle.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to this, please? Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? Councillor Desmarais, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I have a few questions. I will start by saying that I would be supporting this, but I do have some questions that I need to have answered. One, for the public's information, those who are watching COGECO, I've had a lot of questions. Will walk-ins be free of charge?
Mr. Hakeem.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Desmarais. The current fees and rates will stand. The only amendment is what's being requested by the Froganasock group, or the trustees of Froganasock, is the $99 fee per vehicle.
So the free charge or no charge for walk-ins will continue?
Correct.
Okay, Councillor?
Okay, that's important. I will state that some seniors are upset with the idea that they won't have a reduced rate if everything's going across the board at $99. They're a little upset with that, but I'll just make that statement. It is what it is. I would like to have some information from finance as to how this is going to affect the bottom line. I know that with handing everything over, we should be saving some money. We'll have reduced revenues, but there should be some money saved. I just want to know how it's going to save. I know we've budgeted $45,000 for beach spending for the year. Just like to see how this is now going to shake out.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Howe?
Worship, on the screen is the net cost right now. Currently in your budget, the net cost for 2013 was budgeted around $28,000. $45,000 cost, and then the revenue coming in. What would happen is that's transferred to Froganasock Inc. They will be looking at charging per vehicle. Our net cost at $28,000. Currently, we can identify $14,431 approximately, and we're not sure about our attendance on site. There may be additional in here, and I'm going to suggest that we may be somewhere around $18,000 or $20,000. So there may be a savings here of $7,000 or $8,000 net, guessing at this point in time, and until we see how it works with Froganasock and how we're doing, we believe that there will be a net savings to the municipality. But I'm not going to say that, Your Worship, because we've tried to determine and design this agreement to make this work as best as we can. It's against the law to bonus a commercial enterprise, which is what we're not doing here. We're staying away from that. But there is a cost continuation for the city to try to support this beach as a destiny in the city of Port Colborne for all citizens, visitors, and taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Before I go back to you, Councillor Desmarais, I am expecting, or we are expecting as a council, that we'll see variances throughout the year for the APs and the ARs. That's a question. Mr. Hakeem?
Yes, Your Worship, we will, yeah.
Okay, so if you can work with Dallas with respect to showing us the ARs and the APs on variance reports throughout the season, it would be very beneficial for two reasons. One, because it is weather-driven. Hope for good weather. You get bad weather, it becomes a problem. But we want to see that. So we want to make sure that we see those variances for the receivables and the payables throughout the course of the season. Okay, Councillor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, just a couple of more questions. As far as the property is not owned by the city, it's owned by Valley, right? Do we have an agreement with them? Or have they come on board with this?
Mr. Hakeem?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Demery, at present, we've notified them of the proposal and all the details that we are able to provide them. But they haven't come back. They need a couple of more days of review. They were in contact with staff late today, and they've requested at least 2 more days to review before they make comment, because they saw some of the information that's been provided.
Which is the intent of staff, is once this is passed through council, we'll vet it through Valley, and any comments or concerns that they would have, or otherwise, would be, if need be brought back to council.
Great, thank you very much with that one. 2 more questions, okay? Now, in the report, there's talk about a snow fence being replaced by traffic cones. I would like to better understand exactly where that snow fence would normally be located and why the traffic cones would replace it.
Mr. Hakeem?
The snow fence, well, the traffic cones, through you, Your Worship to Councillor Demery, the snow fence was the preferred method of delineating the east portion of the beach where the softer sand is. But the Frog and the Sock, in our discussions over the last few days, preferred to use cones, and we're not adverse to that. They're going to be on site, manning this, operating the beach operations. So if they can make it work, and they think they can, because the cones can be moved around to facilitate whatever operation that they think is necessary for that day, or depending on the weather conditions, is what they prefer to be using. So we didn't disagree with that. Again, trying to move forward with this thing rather than go back and forth. We still have the preference of using a fence because it just allows for better control perhaps, but they felt strongly enough to use traffic cones and convinced us that that would be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. Councillor?
Okay, thank you again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to, I guess, Mr. Hakeem. So just to be really clear on this, this has nothing to do with fencing off private beach areas, correct?
Mr. Hakeem?
That's correct.
Good, thank you. I just want to make sure that that got on camera, because that question has been asked. One more question, Frog and the Sock Incorporated. Are you actually incorporated at this through to Dallas, I guess?
Mr. Wains? Mr. Wains, if you want to come up to the podium, please. Welcome, Dallas.
Thank you for having me. Through you, Mr. Mayor. As soon as we get approval, yes, we have everything in line, and we will be incorporating. As soon as we get the yes, we have everything all set to go.
Great. Thanks, Dallas. Councillor?
Okay, thank you so much, Dallas. So in other words,
yes,
it's going to happen. It's just it's in the process, and that again is making sure that that gets on camera. The only other thing I'd like to say is that we're hoping as a community that you would keep the communication going the same way that you have been. It's been good. You're responding to residents' concerns, that sort of thing, and that you really pay as close attention to the traffic issues as possible.
Of course. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Harry or CAO, maybe I missed it, but when I was reading in there, I think in the financials to all this, nothing is payable till the end of the season. Is that true, and is that unusual? Because do we not do things monthly usually?
Mr. Hakeem?
Through your worship to Councillor Bodner, we did negotiate that at the end of the year there would be a 10% return depending on how well Frog and the Sock would perform. I think there was some preliminary report, our original report based on the RFP, that their financials weren't quite, going to show a sizable revenue, but I still felt it was beneficial to the municipality to at least show that there was going to be some return depending on how well they do, and we're going to do our best to help them be as successful as possible. So there hopefully will be a return. So we'll measure that at the end of the season.
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. That's fine. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Harry. And just to tap into what Councillor Desmarais said with the traffic cones. The snow fence was used to delineate and to restrict the movement of cars on the beach. And while you stated that it won't prevent people, it's not used to restrict private property. On here it says, FIS shall install snow fencing from the sand dunes south of the water's edge at a point approximately 90 meters east of the washrooms that prevents vehicles from driving the length of the beach and onto private property, and provides a soft sand buffer to private property. Now, my question is, if we take the fence out and they put cones up, you just said cones are movable, and all of a sudden the cones get moved and people start driving their cars the length of the beach, which we don't want, and that's why the snow fence was there originally, there's a problem going to occur. I got no problems with you trying the cones at the outset, but I really got a problem with them moving the cones and cars getting on the beach and causing a problem for people that are sitting on the beach sun tanning. And I'll put this forward, and if you want to take it as a friendly amendment, that the first time, and double underline, the first time that there's a problem with cars on the beach, the snow fence goes up. We're not going to have the beach overrun with cars and spoiling people that their free time to go down and play in the sand is spoiled by cars on the beach. So you can have your cones, but I don't want to see any cars outside where they're supposed to be restricted to. The problem with the cones is cones get moved, and all of a sudden you got people going all over the place. Fence is a hard border. You can't get past a snow fence. That I have an issue with, so I'd like to see that the first time that cars are where they're not supposed to be, that a snow fence gets installed, and it would be installed at your cost. Second of all...
So let's deal with that, Councillor.
Yep.
If you want to use that or deal with that as an amendment.
Yes.
First off, most cars wouldn't get that far. Once they hit that sand, they would just, they'd sink. But it's acceptable.
Thank you, Mayor. But I'm also thinking about four-wheelers and stuff like that. They're going to go down and, yeah.
Members of council, I do have a motion for an amendment to the report. If I can have a seconder to that. Councillor Kenny, questions or comments to that? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Worship. Dallas, you're here. Do you have a problem with having the snow fence? Can we leave the snow fence? That's my biggest issue with it. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a good thing, but that is my concern as well. And I don't see what the difference is with, I think it's just like the councillor said, that's a definite, and I just wondered why you wanted to switch that, or is there a reasoning behind that? If you could explain. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. For the past 5 years, maybe it's been in the budget to have a snow fence there, but for the past 5 years, there's not been one there. So really, the only thing we're changing is we're putting up cones when there was nothing there in the past. We are going to be there 12 hours a day, every day, to monitor from the people, driving further down. We want to block off that section with, whether it be, like, if it comes down to it that we need to use snow fencing, then that's fine, so be it. But it hasn't been used in the past 5 years. I might say that it's been used, but I've been there every weekend, and I'm sure Mr. Steele has been there as well, to second this, that they might say they put them up, but they're not putting them up.
So basically, you don't have a problem that the snow fence has to go up?
If it comes down to it, if people aren't happy with what we're doing with the cones, and I think you'll see that we monitor and we'll keep people from going too far down the beach, I don't think we will have a problem.
Okay, so it shouldn't be a problem then?
Should not be.
Okay, so the amendment shouldn't be a problem then either.
Okay.
So, we have a seconder. Any further questions on that amendment? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Second question. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I refer to bullet number 33 on page 9. It says building rent. There is no rent for the season 2013. The city agrees to the proposed percentage return of 10% after all expenses from the Nickel Beach operations by FIS in 2013. And if I can think off the top of my head, the Marina Restaurant, the Icebox, Subway at the Valet Center are all percentage rents based on gross income. And I wonder why we're going to base this percentage rent on net and be in a complete about-face from all the other leases that we have in place. Because if we're going to be on the hook, it says in black and white here, $14,000 plus extra cost, which might push us to 20, and we're only going to save $8,000. Percentage rent's normally based on a gross income. And when I see that it's going to be after all expenses, sometimes expenses can be inflated. Sometimes expenses at the beginning of your initial outset season can outweigh anything that you've driven in revenue. So I'd like to know why we are basing our percentage rent on net and not gross.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hakeem?
Through your worship to Councillor Elliott. That element there was originally not even in the agreement. No element of return to the municipality. So there was some discussion back and forth with Frog and Asok and the trustees, both Dallas and Sue. And so they made this proposal initially. So it's not something that necessarily, we can certainly go back to them with that information and perhaps negotiate that term. But at the present time, with the onset of the new operation and what they envision or perhaps what they're going to experience, I think we're going to try and minimize our costs where we can, support them with this venture, and again, hope that they do a successful job with it this fiscal year. Earlier, I think their initial revenues or their expenses, everything told in the original report when they proposed the operation of Nickel Beach, they showed a negative return. But I think we're basing this also on hopefully the future as time permits, and if they have a successful venture, we're going to renegotiate this lease after this year in terms of looking forward to the next 2, perhaps 3 years. But this is certainly a term that we can go back to, and if it's council's will, then we can certainly look at gross.
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. Would it be fair to say, Mr. Hakeem, too, the difference between this agreement and other agreements that we enter into is that they may be taking off some of the payables that the city would one time assume?
Through your worship, yes, that would be correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Heil?
Your worship, and one other matter about calculating the percentage is that this operation, when we operate it, there's a loss. And there has been a loss, and there's a lot of other things have to take place on the property. The one that we charge on the gross percentage is a profit-oriented, the restaurant. It's a lot different than this operation here. The intention here is to try, if we look at the RFP that was submitted by Frog and Asok, by Dallas and Sue, both years show significant loss. That's not the case where we're actually obtaining a portion of the revenues from profit, such as the restaurant. There is a difference. And the restaurant is a total responsibility for all of the costs. And in here, in accordance with the memo that you have, some of this is because of the type of operation, like, for example, the grading of the beach. We're not sweeping the floor in the restaurant, but this thing we have to grade the beach because of the issues in respect of the environment and trying to maintain it as a public access. It is still a public beach. Park. Different than a restaurant.
Thanks, Bob. Councillor?
I guess that's precisely my point. If a restaurant is picking up 100% of the operating costs, we're giving them the building, and we're still charging them the percentage rent above a level. We've got a beach where we're going to go in and do the work, and he gets all the money. And I don't mean that offensively. We're going in and we're picking up the cost of $20,000 to grade it and clean it and look after it, and then we're going to take 10% of net, which the proponent has said is going to be nil. So we're still going to lose $20,000 I don't exactly know what their budget was and how much they proposed to lose. But when I rent you or lease you the beach, I lease you an opportunity for you to make money. You're the one that should take all the liability. Because I've got something that's a valuable asset that I'm leasing to you, you're the one that takes the chance on how much money you can generate off it. But I want to gain some monetary return because I'm putting $20,000 of my own money into it. And yes, while we have lost money in past years, when you take a look at the rents that we're charging other people to use our facilities, we built the facility, the new Valet Center, and we charge Subway to go in there, and on a percentage rent above so much their annual sales, anything above that we're getting 10% of. So I really can't support this with that line in there that says we're only going to charge you 10% of net. That just doesn't sit well with me when all the other facilities that we rent out to people are charged on a percentage rent on gross above a certain figure. We could come to an agreement on a figure, on anything above that figure, you pay us 10% of your gross. I would be more than happy that, but I can't support it when it's 10% of net.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Howe?
Your Worship, a couple of responses, if I may, through you, to members of council. In all cases where we're charging a fee, to start with in the restaurant's example, it's a flat rate. And if they make so much money, then they get a percentage. It is a flat rate. It is a profit-oriented. Same thing with Subway in the Health and Wellness Center. This use on this beach could be considered a municipal capital facility under Section 110 of the Municipal Act, and in fact will still be used for public purposes. There is a big distinction between this happening for public purposes as a park and Don Cherry's or Subway. There is a huge difference in the way this functions, the way the income comes in, and the way hopefully it's being used. So there is a difference. The fact is right now we have identified $14,000 that we're going to spend. If we're still operating it, our net cost, if it's a good dry summer, will be $28,000. There may be some additional costs during the summer where we're visiting and regularly inspecting, and that's a reallocation of charges and costs. But there is still a savings to the municipality, which is pretty good rent, if you want to call it that, based on our agreement, for example, with some of our commercial entities. So while there's a 10% on net charge, we're actually saving it in taxes by reducing our net cost of operating. The frog in the sock, if there's an opportunity, and in the first few months after monthly reports come into City Council, if there is any kind of savings, and I think it's going to be very hard pressed, I think the frog in the sock has its work cut out for it to try to make some income off of this. If there is, then we can rephrase this contract. Right now, we want to get it operating as best as we possibly can, and if there is something that comes out of it where it has been a huge success, then there is an option in here to renegotiate and redesign this lease.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Members of council, are there any further questions or comments to this? With none, your pleasure to the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Thank you, Dallas.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate your time tonight. Harry, great job. Members, we're now going to move on to item 24. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the Township of Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards proposed motion from the Ontario Convenience Stores Association re contraband tobacco be received for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Elliott. Questions or comments? Councillor?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I happened to be at the OSAM conference in the last 2 weeks ago, and was approached by the Ontario Convenience Stores Association, asking me to bring back some information to our BIAs and our Chamber of Commerce and our Economic Development Office regarding this particular request, asking for support and a letter to be written by the municipality in support of the banning the sale and distribution of contraband tobacco. This actually is going to go a long way to the motion from the region tonight, because if you take away the contraband tobacco now being sold in the convenience stores, and there are several locally that are doing it, tobacco becomes a much higher price, and people can't afford it as easily. So it does cut back on smoking. There's a plus there. But also, it's important that we do support our local businesses, and this is a request being made by their associations. I've given Councillor Elliott 2 packages, one for the Chamber of Commerce and one for the Downtown BIA, and Councillor Danch one for the Gateway BIA, and I have one for Stephen Thompson. So if you would pass those along with that information, I would very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And we do have a motion here to receive for information. However, just because Council is receiving it for information doesn't mean in the future, after we receive input from the BIA, the Chamber of Commerce, etc., that Council can simply take a position on it then. So receiving it for information just does that. But we can expect some kind of feedback from those folks, and therefore maybe a further direction past the receiving information. Councillor Bodner?
Mr. Mayor, I realize that we were receiving it for information. I didn't declare conflict because I sell tobacco, but when it does come to the vote, and if we're not having a vote tonight, I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor. Members of Council, to receive for information, did you guys want to add to that? Councillor Bodner, I don't want to put you in an awkward position, but did you guys want to add that Councillor Desmarais is also going to pass this information on to those different organizations as part of the motion? Is that fine? To the mover and seconder? That's fine? Okay, I'll take that as a friendly amendment. Great, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Ron, did you want to declare? Yeah, take the high road.
I will declare conflict, and I will vote on this.
Thank you, Councillor Bodner. Members of Council, your pleasure. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Now it's your turn. Finally. Sorry, guys. We'll now move on to item 1. We do have a report here that deals with Department of Planning and Development Report number 2013-20, which is the recommendation report for a zoning bylaw amendment, which is what all you folks are here for. I am going to allow Councillor Butters to introduce that recommendation. Councillor Butters, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the recommendation. Number 1, that the Council of the City of Port Colborne approve the zoning bylaw amendment attached hereto as Appendix A, rezoning the land from existing HD zone to the site-specific HD-365 golf cart sales zone and the HR Hamlet residential zone. 2, that the city clerk is hereby authorized and directed to proceed with the giving of notice of passing of the bylaws in accordance with the Planning Act. 3, that pursuant to the provisions of Section 3417 of the Planning Act, no further notice of public meeting be required.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that recommendation, please? Councillor Bodner. Now, with that, members of Council, we do have a full gallery here today, or pretty well full gallery here today. A few things that I would ask Council's pleasure for. First off, we do have registered delegates. We have John Crossingham of Crossingham Brady, City of St. Catharines, with us this evening. John, welcome. We do have Sherry Rustin once again here. No, Sherry? Pardon me? You won't be? Okay. Thanks, Sherry. We also have as registered delegates Bonnie Dayball and Leroy Bell. Are they here tonight?
Yes, we will not be delegating tonight.
You're not? Great, thank you. William Gordon as a delegation, as well as Michael McDonald, who represents Mr. Gordon. We'll be making a delegation as well. Is Mr. McDonald here? Yeah. Oh, great, great. So the rest have declined, okay. And as well, members of Council, it has been requested that a member of Council, in fact, ask for a recorded vote so that everyone's recorded as per the vote that would be taken. And secondly, that if any other member of the public would, in fact, want to speak, I will ask a member of council, based on seeing a hand raised in the delegate or in the gallery. We are trying to be as open as possible here, although we do have a procedural bylaw that this lady on my left, your right, ensures that I abide by, or else she kicks me, and she kicks me hard. But with that, there's no reason why a member of council can't simply ask for a leave of council to allow anyone to speak that may want to speak on this issue, which I'm sure members of council would oblige to if in fact we see a hand go up. So with that, we're going to start off with Mr. Crossingham as the first delegation, and we'll move on from there. John, once again, welcome. Welcome back to the chamber. It's been a while.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is John Crossingham, and for those of you who are of English extraction will know that people who have names that end in ham or ton or by are people who come from small communities. That's how our ancestors derived their names. And some of you may be surprised to hear that by is on that list, but I ask you to think of places like Grimsby or Whitby, or the fact that this council passes bylaws. And the by in bylaw simply means that it is a regulation of local impact. And it's the local impact of this bylaw that you are proposing for this hamlet that brings me here before you this evening. What I believe has been lost in the examination of all of the official plans that deal with this property is the fact that these hamlets are designed as small residential enclaves primarily, and that the commercial development within those enclaves is intended to be of local impact, local service to the hamlet and to the immediately surrounding area. And that is the universal theme that you find in all of the official plans. There are words that say limited, non-farm development, but that doesn't mean that it isn't development that's supportive and integrated with this community. So the overarching question that I think you must wrestle with as elected representatives is, what is the fit of golf carts in Sherkston? What is the need of this community that's being serviced by the commercial use that is being proposed to be introduced amongst it? How is this supportive of, how does this build Sherkston as a stronger, better community in which the citizens that reside there feel welcome in their community and supportive amongst themselves? Why here is the very simple question. I find no direction in your planning documents that tells you it should be here, and a great deal that suggests it should not. It is not supportive of the local community and the farm community. It is not amongst the list of those local items. There is one comment in your old official plan about service stations. And I ask you to think, if you've ever been to Tintern, I have. I bike through Tintern often, and I know Mr. Heil's been to Tintern. There's a little garage there, and he fixes up your car and the farm vehicles from the surrounding community. But that's what they're talking about when they're talking about that in your official plan, not about golf carts. Heaven's not about recreational vehicles, but that's now evidently by the board. So I leave you with this simple thought. You have no official plan direction to do this. You have a great deal of opposition from the local community that tells you you shouldn't. And I suggest that that is the right answer for Sherkston, because this is not part of the Sherkston community. And I'll go back to my hamlet. Thank you very much. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Crossingham. Members of council? Members of council, any questions or comments? With none, John, thank you.
Thank you for your hospitality. Good evening.
Members of council will now move on to our next delegation, Mr. William Gordon from Birdie Golf Carts. Mr. Gordon, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I believe this is what Councilor Reedby was talking about, the paperwork, $56 worth. I'm going to have to get rid of these two. New glasses. Regardless of the outcome of the vote tonight, I would like to thank the councilors and the mayor for all the work and dedication that's been put into this. I know this was kind of overwhelming, or at least I think it was. I actually had a couple councilors show up at our on-site to take a look and see what we were doing out there and how it fit and how noisy it was and so forth and so on. I've got quite a few pages here, so I think I may be do we have anything after this? I think I just might get rid of this stuff here and try to answer a couple of questions that were just presented to us there. Why does it fit? It's probably the single largest gathering of golf carts in Ontario, Shirkston Shores. I know people here draw a line between, there's a fence there and Shirkston Shores is over here, and it's not part of the community. I don't really believe that's fair or right. But also on the other side of that fence, we know of 25 to 30 golf carts just within the Empire Road, Shirkston Road line, and in Maple in that little cul-de-sac back in there. And these are all residents, all live in the Hamlet or Shirkston Shores area, and we will provide a service to these people. And one of the other things, the direction. I mean, we was talking about an old garage somewhere else, and maybe they weren't thinking of golf carts at the time. I mean, golf carts have been for golf courses. Golf courses now are the smallest part of my business. We deal with individual people purchasing golf carts from us, using them at their cottages, using them on the farm, using it at the horse stables, using it at the racetrack, your canal days. We support different different groups. Hat of Hope, Hope a Hat, Hat of Hope, a cancer, what's the word I'm looking for? Fundraiser. Thank you very much. I feel a little nervous today. And there's quite a few different ones too that we support in not just taking the cart there, but financially we support them. And I guess, again, back to the proximity of Shirkston is a big deal for us. When we started out down on Garrison Road, there was nobody between us and where we are now. Now there's 5 or 6 different people doing golf carts all in this area, and not all of them meet the proper rules and regulations, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do this properly. We're trying to fit in, and it is something that's needed down there. I mean, whether you like it or not is a different thing, but it does fit. It does work down there. I guess I got off course. I'm sorry I got off course here because I'm kind of mucking this up. I also would like to thank the city staff. They did a great job down there. We were in their face a lot of information, friendly, courteous. Shannon, Heather, Dan, great people to work with down there. One of the biggest things about moving our shop over here is, and there's a lot of these letters were directed at traffic. And I know people don't believe that we'll make the traffic better. You know, without trying to explain it too much, it will make the traffic down there better. For our location, I'll try to explain it to you if you
Guys,
wish.
excuse me, excuse me. Okay, he's making a presentation. Let's all respect the presentations that are being made this evening. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. If we locate where we're talking about locating, most of the traffic comes out of Shirkston Shores. There's no doubt about that. Most of our traffic, most of our clients, customers come from that area. Now they drive all the way up Empire Road, onto the treacherous corner, down to our shop. And to get into our driveway is another difficult turn. We've had an accident there already. We are at the end of the S-bends, and we probably have 150 yards visibility. So if we slow down, which my truck has to slow down to go in, and this is where the accident happened. A young gentleman come around the corner, panicked, put on the brakes, slid down into the ditch and hit the culvert, just missing the truck. So these are tricky places to get into. So we will eliminate the drive going into that driveway and that corner at Empire and Garrison Road. So back to, if we're sitting in the middle, all those cars that drive all the way up Empire Road no longer drive up all the way up Empire Road. Reducing the north section, reducing the traffic down the north section of the road. That's a given. Now we're going to have some people that are drive in from the other direction that aren't Shirkston customers, and they're going to have to negotiate the corner, and they're going to come down the north part of the road. But it will be nowhere near the amount of cars that drive all the way up the road. That will be less at that end. I wish it went further down the road, but it doesn't. But it will be less at that end. And for our tractor trailer, people are, you know, they're saying, okay, the corner's bad. Why do you want to come out of there? Our tractor trailer will come out of Empire Road onto Highway 3. It has a clear sight all the way down there for hundreds of yards, and then back down to the east for hundreds of yards. When we come out of our driveway at our shop now, again, we have 150-yard visibility before that corner. And you want to take a tractor trailer out of that thing, it's not an easy task. So in doing this, it makes it a lot safer for everybody that travels to Birdie golf carts. And whether it be for Birdie golf carts or not, the people that make this journey, it is safer. I don't want to exaggerate it. I don't want to say you're going to save someone's life, but you just might by relocating this to that location. The traffic that leaves at our new location, the traffic leaving from the new location on Empire Road, heading south to Empire Road, that traffic is already there. We're not creating more traffic. They already come back down through Empire Road, and it's already there. We're not increasing it. It may, over the years, increase with our business increasing, if it increases, but it would also increase with our business increasing when we're located on Garrison Road. If we're getting more business over there on Garrison Road from people from Shirkston Shore, that traffic will increase. It's a really simple idea. So the fact of the matter is, we're cutting back on the transportation for everybody, for us going in and out of Shirkston, for customers from Shirkston, from the customers that are on Empire Road and Shirkston Road. It is a shorter trip for everybody, and it is a less dangerous trip by a long shot. There's a lot of misinformation put out, and I don't think I'm even going to bother with that. Here are a couple of professional agencies that have reviewed this application. Fire and Emergency Services, no concerns. Bylaw Enforcement Division, no issues. Niagara Region Public Works Department, Development Service Division, not opposed. Region, Private Sewage Service Staff, no objections. NPCA, reviewed the property, large enough to sustain 2 septic systems. Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, after reviewing the vegetation survey, no further objections. Ministry of Environment walked the property. No evidence of underground tanks. No environmental concerns regards to Old Pond. No Ministry of Environment outstanding compliance issues. The Technical Safety and Standards Association, TSSA, no record of underground storage tanks. Department of Engineering and Operations, traffic survey not required. MTO Ministry of Transportation, traffic study not required. Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and the region. No concerns related to the impact of the high vulnerable aquifer. Region of Niagara, not opposed. I mean, I don't know how many professional people you want to look at this and come up with this type of green light. I think I've taken up enough time. I'm not going to try to fiddle through any more of these papers. I really do appreciate the time that's been put in this, and I know it was overwhelming for me, and I'm sure there was way too much paperwork for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Members of council, are there any questions or comments? Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Gordon. Mr. Gordon, I do have a few questions and certainly an explanation needed for something here. First of all, when we talk about the impacts of driving the traffic impacts, you mentioned driving and arriving, going from Sherkston and arriving at your business, and I'm understanding that you mean by automobile, correct?
Correct.
All right. So people are coming by automobile to pick up a golf cart? Why would they be doing this? I'm not understanding.
Mr. Gordon?
No, it would be for parts, to look at purchasing a golf cart or questions, anything, but they do not pick up I mean, almost nobody picks up a golf cart.
Councillor?
How many, sorry, again through you, Mr. Mayor, how often do you see people actually driving a golf cart from Sherkston to your business? And consider that if your business is located closer to Sherkston, do you anticipate that happening?
Mr. Gordon?
No, they never drive a golf cart to my business, and I don't anticipate them driving up to the other business. I mean, it's illegal. It's uninsured motor vehicle. We post that in our office at Sherkston.
Okay, Councillor?
Okay, that's good, thank you. Mr. Mayor, again, through you, do you, Mr. Gordon, have any support for this? Have you brought any community support here?
I didn't go that way. I didn't in fact, when everybody brought that stuff up, I did go out and talk to a few people, and I actually went to the people that received letters, or most of the people that received letters. I think I missed there's a farmer across the north side of the road. But I ran into the people along Sherkston Road. There was 4 different people down there that had no objections to it, wished me well. 2 of them were interested in purchasing a golf cart. I talked to Mr. Horton, who was at, I believe it's Mr. Horton at the north end of Empire Road, had no objections to it. Probably the 3 people directly across the road are the most affected. I talked with Paul. We had a long talk. He wished me well and he didn't seem to mind too much, but yeah. But I didn't go out I didn't bring a petition or anything like that.
Councillor?
But we do have some 1,300, and again, I'm sorry, residents in Sherkston that will be very happy to see us that much closer.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, again through you. I wanted to know that because we do see overwhelming support.
Yes.
For the other side of the issue. I was hoping that there would be something on your side so we could listen to that. But in any case, if this vote did not go in your favor, are you willing to look at other possible locations?
I've looked at a lot of other locations already, and I don't want to get further away. Like I said, since I've started, there's been 5 or 6 other people popping up. Some do it out of their house, some do it for cash in their jeans, some do it, none of them do it for the same reasons. This is all we do is the golf cart business. This is our sole source of income. We don't sell cars, we don't sell firewood, we don't sell ice. This is what we do. We need to be closer. We've got a lot of people chipping at our heels. It's a good business move for me. And I will build a nice building, and it will fit into the community.
Thank you. Councillor?
That's all I have for now, thank you.
Further questions or comments, members? Councillor Danch.
I know we spoke a little bit, and we've got the gallows ringing in the aisles here, but I just wondered if you can't get on Highway 3 somewhere. I think when I spoke with the other fellow there, it was
Mike.
something to do with agricultural and stuff like that. I mean, there's property on the highway. I just, you know, you're in business, I'm in
Yeah.
business, we're in the business world here. Nowhere else that you could maybe get it close, get out of their backyard, and still be beneficial to your business?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Gordon?
I haven't found anything that works for me. There is, Paul actually, Paul Rustin, he said, I believe his brother had an old garage up on the north side of Highway 3 at one time by, next to the guy that builds trailers, but I'm very afraid of garages. I've had people in, I've looked at a garage to purchase a garage before. The problem with the underground tanks, how long they've been in the ground, the old oil tanks, everything that goes along with them is a pretty scary proposition to jump into that. So I have not found anything. I don't want to move further away, for starters. I would like to be closer to my largest group of customers. I think moving further away and putting more people in between it is more difficult. But I haven't found anything, and I mean, I've been open. I've looked at different places, but I would rather take the back chunk off of the piece of property I'm purchasing and put it out there. But I've been told don't even go that way. They said if you think this is hard, why do you try doing that? I mean, that would be perfect. There's 372 and a half feet on the backside facing Garrison Road, where the old gas pump used to run. If I came back there, I'd be sitting on Highway 3. It would be beautiful, but it seems to make too much sense. I would be perfect. I would trade that property for the property down here and not use up any more agriculture. But I've been told not to even dabble in that. I'm going against provincial plan, this plan and that plan, and I probably have all those people I listed that would probably all be against me for doing that one. But I would love to be out there.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Councillor? That's fine. Further questions or comments, members? With none, thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time this evening. Our next delegation members is Mr. Mike McDonald. Mr. McDonald?
Mr. Mayor, can I decline to speak? I think
You should, sure you can.
that needs to be said and answered. Questions unless.
Great. Okay, thank you, Mr. McDonald. Members of council, we have the report before us. I don't see any hands going up for anybody else that wants to speak yet. Ma'am, come on up. She was actually already a delegation on the list. Mrs. Dayball?
Yes, I was actually delegated and I declined, but when I heard some of the remarks, Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd just like to say about the golf carts not driving to your business from Shirkston Shores. Those 1,300 people that you're making happy are all in Shirkston Shores. None of them are residents, full-year residents. Excuse me. As for the golf carts, I walk the trail every day, and in the summertime, the golf carts are always on the road. They go by Daymutes, down the tracks, and you know what? We see a cop car about once a week go by on Shirkston Road. I'm at 4668, and my property runs between Shirkston Road and Highway 3, right there. And we're agricultural. We run a horse farm. And we have 3 shallow wells. I'm concerned about the water table. I'm concerned about the pollution that it's going to cause. And I just think that this is not a good fit for our community. We ride horses down the road. You know yourself, if you've traveled Shirkston Road or Empire or Pleasant Beach, that there is no shoulder to the road. If you're on the road or if you're off the road, you're in the ditch. And we've already had one fatality with a horse and traffic on Pleasant Beach Road. There was a girl killed there. And this is not a good fit for us. The traffic should be going down Highway 3 to his place. And, you know, I just think that we're getting Fort Erie's problem. He's moving out of there, and he's going to create a lot of problems for us. There's all kinds of places. He can come up here to the industrial park. There's all kinds of places on Highway 3 with property that are for sale, with clear vision, and I disagree with this completely. I think this is a big sham. We put you people in office because we believe that you are going to help us. You're our spokesperson. That's why we're all here. You know? Because we believe that you're going to help us. He's all just talking about non-residents at Shirkston Shores. Those are Americans. And yes, this is probably a multi-million-dollar business, but we don't want it in our backyard. We're a small hamlet. I just don't believe in this. This is ridiculous, this business going in. And I think you better think about it real clearly, because it's going to create a lot of problems. There's a lot of danger there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daybell. Members of council, any questions or comments to the presenter? Councillor Bodnar.
Not the presenter, but
The
Mr.
staff?
Gordon or Mike.
Pardon me?
Mr. Gordon or Mike McDonald.
Sure. Go ahead, Councillor.
Sure. Sorry, Mike, I thought you were going to get up. That's why I saved the question for you. Not that I was trying to pick on you and not Butch, but, you know.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Mike, you had said at the public meeting that at some point you hope possibly to buy this outfit. You're a young guy, and I guess the problem I have with it is that you know, certainly after a number of years, I think you're going to look to expand, and you know, whether it's through an acquisition of, you know, another company or simply the demand. What's your plan for expansion? You know, you're on a piece of property that I don't know, I haven't seen the exact diagram, but you might be kind of maxed out on now. So just your thoughts on the expansion
Thank you, Councillor.
possibilities.
Mr. McDonald.
Mr. Mayor, as far as expansion goes, I really can't speak and say that. Let's start at the beginning. Yes, absolutely. I intend to purchase Birdie golf carts, and yes, thank you. But as expansion, we've we've got a great business. We service Shirkston Shores. To speak to the last person as well, we're a retail business for Shirkston Shores. I wish I had the numbers for you, for everyone here, what we do at Shirkston Shores as percentage to what we do everywhere else. We're a retail business for them. And as far as expansion goes, one of the best parts about our seasonal business is our predictability. We're so predictable. Every year, we come in, we do the same thing, we get the same results. It's a good thing, really. It's not a bad thing. And as far as expansion goes, I can't say that other product lines or I don't have those intentions right now. Right now, I intend to do the same thing, be successful at it, and moving closer to Shirkston, to our largest retail customer. Those are the people that come in our door. That's where we want to be.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Members of council, further questions or comments? Councillor Bodnar, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, is that going to be all the delegates? We'll get a chance to express some statements as the, you know, when it comes to the vote. We get a chance to say a few things before the vote?
I'm going to get back to council in a second, but I just want to exhaust if anybody else from the public would want to speak. That's not on a delegation list. We have all the delegates that have spoken. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to ask for leave of council. Members of council, these are members that were not on the delegation list, but I'll need leave from you to allow these folks to speak. Councillor Steele, Councillor Bodnar, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. If I can ask you to come on, why don't you all come on up right now? You can sit in the front row here. And if you can start off with your name and your address, and we're good to go. So ma'am, we'll start off with you, if you want to come up to the podium. If you just want to press the gray button there, and you're good to go.
Mr.
Welcome.
Mayor and council, I'm directly right next door to this where it's going to happen. And I am really, really concerned of the well system, because it's right next door to me. So that's my main concern.
And your name, ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry, Emmy Foss.
Emmy Foss?
4838 Shirkston Road.
Great, thank you. See that? Sir, welcome. Now behave. I'm watching you.
I'm Dave Diplock, 5488 Shirkston Road. I think we're skirting around the issue here. Most of the people who don't buy their golf carts from this gentleman buy them from Dave Lee. He sells them all the time. He services them and sells them. If anybody in Shirkston wants a golf cart, they go to Dave Lee. It's that simple. Why would we have more than one business in our area that's selling golf carts and servicing golf carts when we really don't need more than one? We certainly don't need a multi-million-dollar golf cart service pulling in with tractor trailers. Have you ever tried to drive down Empire Road on the weekend? You know, there's RVs, there's cars and trucks with trailers. Sometimes the traffic is backed up right to the number 3 highway and beyond. It would be a very difficult thing for another tractor trailer to pull down there and then make a turn into his driveway across from the church. I just don't think that Shirkston needs more than one golf cart service. We have one. If we want a golf cart, we have a service, we have a place to buy them and get them repaired and do whatever we want to do with the darn things. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Diplock. Before you step down, I just need your house number on Shirkston Road.
5488.
5488. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, come on up. Welcome. Watch your head there.
Gord Berry, 569 Pleasant Beach Road. If they've got such a big base of business in Shirkston Shores, and I know they have a lot of land in there, why can't they set up a shop in there and base their business right from there? They can keep their own shop that they got and expand in there. And I know, because I've worked for contractors in Shirkston Shores, and they've got a lot of land that it's not suitable for things other than buildings. They've got a huge shop in there now. Why can't they expand in there? Then nobody has to hit the road.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Berry.
they still have their other shop.
Thank you. Questions or comments to the presenter? Thank you, Mr. Berry. Ma'am, you're up.
I live at 586 Empire Road in Shirkston. And if they end up having this at the end of Empire Road, there's going to be a lot of young kids that are going to get killed, because I already see it every day up and down the road, and they're all from the park on golf carts. And the kids are sitting in the back, and it's going to happen. They're all going to be driving up, because now they'll have closer access at the end of Empire instead of having to go down Highway 3. And I agree with the last gentleman. If they're servicing Shirkston, then why don't they, be in Shirkston, in the park? Because, yeah, there's just going to be more and more golf cart traffic on Empire Road than what there is already. People flying through my yard constantly on golf carts, and people speed on the road, and the more golf carts that are on that road going up to the end of Empire, the more people are at risk.
Okay, thank you. I need your name before you.
Oh, Margaret.
Margaret.
White.
White. Okay, Margaret White. Questions or comments from members of council? With none? Dan?
If I may.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm Diane Grenier. I'm at 4750 Shirkston Road. I'm next door to Emmy Foss. I know you've heard all of this already at the planning meeting. And I think what Mr. Crossingham said today is the real point. There is no legislative basis for it. In addition, I would like to file what I had presented to you at the meeting, because I did not file it at that time, and I do not want it to be missed as part of the record. And rather than repeat it all, I'll file my written notes. How shall I do that?
We can just pass it on to the clerk, and we'll make sure that it goes into the minutes.
At the end of the meeting.
Actually, you can give it to me right now, Diane. Just pass it to Councillor Butters there, and she'll pass it down. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you. We're asking, of course, all of us are asking that the council deny this application.
Thank you, Diane. Members of the council, any questions or comments to the presenter? If none, come on up.
At 935 Empire Road, Shirkston, right across where he's going to build. I disagree with it totally. I have 5 kids, and with his tractor trailers and trailers, you're going to have to widen that road. He's going to have to swing on the other lane to come into his business, and then my kids and I'm going to be backing up right across from him with the traffic. I don't even allow my daughter to go out to the Garrison Road because of the traffic. There's been people killed there. The traffic is bad. I do see golf carts all the time. They run, go back. I have horses. They're terrified of the traffic. We're not allowed to do anything. I don't even let my kids go to the second tree to my driveway because of traffic. The drinking water, if you could tell me there's not going to be no leakage, and if there is, that he replaces everybody and puts new cisterns in. I don't want to get water dirty for my kids, and I don't think it's right. I don't think a bit. If he's been there 18 years, why change him and upset all these other residents? I don't think it's fair. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the council, any questions or comments? Presenter? With none? Do we have any other folks? Members of the council, we have the report in front of us. It's to your pleasure now. Yes, sir, Mr. Gordon?
May I just address a couple questions? I thought I wouldn't go through all that paperwork.
Council? That's fine? Okay. Come on up, Mr. Gordon.
Make it short.
In regards to Shirkston Shores, they're not interested in us setting up our golf cart business within their facility. We have a compound now where we rent our carts out and so forth and so on, but they don't want our complete company in there. It would cause, we keep going back to the traffic, and I can't seem to get this point across. Even if they let us go into Shirkston Shores, now I'm driving all of my trucks and tractors up Empire Road, all the way along Empire Road. We are going to be 900 feet south of Garrison. That's where the tractor trailer is going to travel, from there out to the Highway 3. It won't come down any further than that. If you want me down the road further, I'm going to be driving a massive tractor trailer up through there, and then you're going to cause more problems. We can deliver 10 to 12 carts into Shirkston Shores on one of my trailers. My competition can deliver 1 to 2 carts. So if I'm dropping off 50 carts, I got 5 trips. If they're dropping off 50 carts, they got 25 plus trips. Who's causing traffic here? I mean, we keep going back to the same thing. Somebody doesn't want it here. Somebody doesn't want it there. You need to put it inside Shirkston. That wouldn't work for you at all. You would be more upset with that than me being out there. People it's that nobody wants it in their backyard thing. But we're building, you talk about a community. When you look into the community, what builds a community? Commerce is one of the things that builds a community. You go through all these papers that were sent in here, commerce, a place where you can work, play, and live. All 3 of those things. And we're going to be doing that. We had a young kid come from Shirkston Shores outside of the fence. His father brought him up and applied for a job. We had the young Schisler boy work for us for a season. We buy our mulch from Schisler's. put our party on at the S-Bend. I've stayed at the motel, what was called Sleepy Time. We are a part of the Fort Erie community. We want to move into here. Well, we will be a good neighbor in this area. We are concerned. We don't want lights flashing in our windows when we're trying to watch TV or relax. We don't want that to happen to you either. The water, I will not be drilling a well. I'm going to try to recapture the water for washing the golf carts. We are trying to recycle more at our place. Again, a cistern, no well. I don't know how many times I can say it to try. You guys are just getting the answers you don't want to hear. But these are good, legitimate points. It is a hamlet development. Development. That means something. That means for development. And that's what we want to do. And there's a few different things you can do in a development. And we were, with the city planning, we picked out one of the ones that we thought would fit ours. Somehow we got carried away on trailers and all this stuff. I had RVs on the application thinking of recreation vehicles because we sell 4x4s, 4 farms. We sell different vehicles like that, and we want to expand into that. I don't have any interest in selling trailers, pop-up trailers, mobile homes. I have no interest in that. I'm not sure what the bad thing is about that thing, but we're not looking to do that. So someone said about we have Dave Lee's or we have Shirkston Autos. When I insure the golf carts when they're off-site from owners, and nobody here thinks there's a golf cart outside that fence. Take a drive around in your community because you don't know it very well, because there's all kinds of golf carts out there. And we instruct people not to drive their golf carts up and down the road. It's not a good thing. We don't tell you to drive the golf cart up and down the road. We don't want you driving a golf cart up and down the road. And any golf carts that are going up and down the road right now are not coming to my place. I have never seen anyone from Shirkston Shores drive from there to my place in a golf cart. If they're driving somewhere, they're driving to those 5 other or 6 other people that are doing it in their backyards or wherever. But they're not driving it up to my place. And if people want to drive up to my place, we have a sign down at our place in Shirkston Shores that it is illegal to drive. It is a $5,000 fine because you're an uninsured motor vehicle and we don't promote it. I don't know if there's anything I missed, but we keep beating this thing to death here. And I was trying to eliminate all of this paperwork. And here's some pictures here. I don't know if they're, for the signs, they weren't put up on time. The signs were put up on time. That we have documented, photographed, timed photography that the signs were put up on time. They were put in the proper spots. We were told to put them on 3 on each side. We put one on Shirkston Road, one on Empire Road, one on Highway 3. We have been trying to do everything to the T. We've been listening, we've been taking instructions, and that's what we've been doing. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Before, Mr. Gordon, I had a question. Mr. Barry, sit down. Mr. Barry, sit down. Mr. Gordon, one question I have for you. With respect to, you made the comment about trucks going down Shirkston Road or Empire Road, that it would alleviate the amount of trucks going from, say, Highway 3 down Empire Road to Shirkston Shores. There is no expectation, as you hopefully correctly cited, that golf carts won't be zipping up and down Empire Road. So my question is how would you get the golf carts from your property on Empire Road down to Shirkston Shores?
No, is this on? Yeah. We do drive a truck down into Shirkston Shores. We have a flatbed truck with a trailer, and we can put 10 golf carts on that we do drive down there.
So you still, regardless
of what happens,
you're still going to be driving trucks down Empire Road, down to
absolutely.
Shirkston Shores.
It won't be increased. It'll be these trucks. If we were doing this at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock today, those trucks would be driving up and down Shirkston Shores. And this is a particular time that's busy because all the customers want their carts back. So we go through this busy time to get those carts there back to our customers, and then it relaxes.
So I'm just going to your comment with respect to the trucks going down Empire Road. You made the comment that if you're located at the location that you're proposing,
right,
that in fact you would alleviate truck traffic going down to Shirkston Shores. When in fact that wouldn't be the case because you still have to bring the carts down there
No, I'm sorry, I think there's a misunderstanding. We will not reduce the traffic from our place, the proposed place to Shirkston Shores. We will not reduce that traffic. We will not increase it, but we will reduce it going north of our place to
Highway 3.
To Highway 3. Not a lot of places, but there is 3 or houses along there that it will be reduced.
Okay, I thought your comment was from the proposed piece of property south to Shirkston Shore versus the 900 feet, I think you cited,
No.
between Highway 3
Our
and your
tractor
place.
trailer has no reason to go down that way. It will not go to Shirkston Road to get out
Oh,
to
so
the.
there's different vehicles is what you're talking about.
There's different vehicles, but it
Gotcha.
will not go south. That's something I will not let them do, and there's no reason for it. We get on the smaller roads, and our best, I mean, if you picture us, we're sitting here, there's the highway. Why go right to Shirkston or down to Beach or anything to get there? Even Cherry Hill, we deal with Cherry Hill, we would go to Highway 3, over to Cherry Hill, drop off at Cherry Hill.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Gordon. So from then what I'm understanding is that you're going to be doing pretty much the same truck traffic that you do now. It's not going to be much difference in that. The only difference seems to be by relocating that you'll have an edge on competition. Would that be right?
No, that wouldn't be right. No, we will have the same traffic from the new place, can I call it the new place? From the new place down, we will have the same traffic. That traffic's not going to change. North of that, we will have less traffic, in my opinion. People are going to argue that fact. In my opinion, we will have considerably less traffic. And the other thing, all these people will not negotiate that corner or negotiate getting into my driveway. And both of those are bad spots.
Okay. Further questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Now, members of the council, I have Mr. Berry that wants to speak, and I've seen another hand go up back there as well. 2 more hands. Okay, and that's we're going to call it there. Members of the council, are you okay with that? Okay, everybody's fine with that? Okay, Mr. Berry and the other 2 folks, if you guys want to come on up here. Yes, you as well. And I seen a hand go up right there. Good. And then we're going to call it quits from there, guys, and we're going to go right into the report. Welcome back, Mr. Berry.
Hey. Well, he talks about commerce. Agriculture is also commerce, and that's what we are down there. We're this is the start of an industrial park. We're not serviced for it. We don't have. Well, Port Colborne hasn't run the water down Kowalik Street. They didn't even service the public school down there. When they got it in 1970, when regional government took over, that school didn't have water. You didn't run it down when you came there. You didn't extend it. You could have at least ran water down the gas line where the trucks could pick it up. Now you're talking about starting the business there, and then how far is it going to go? That's the big thing. When you turn an agricultural land into an industrial land, you better service it. And Rustin's is there. I worked in the Shell oil refinery, and it isn't that hard to dig up contaminated soil. And the test for it, we got off the machines, we picked it up and sniffed it. When we couldn't smell petroleum products, we filtered back in the hole. There's a big shopping mall up there on Burl Oak, huge. That's where the oil refinery was. So Rustin's an ideal place for them to go.
Thank you, Mr.
It's already serviced, look, it's got it zoned and everything.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Sir, you're up.
Hi. I spoke the last meeting. My name's Jack Garbett, 923 Empire Road, right next door to Debbie here. And he says the traffic will not be increased. How can it not be from my house to the highway when his other business he's saying all those other tractor trailers are bringing carts in and out of there going to Mississauga or wherever at who knows at what time at night. Now all that traffic that was going there is going to be just Empire Road steady now, right across the street from us. Now she's got 5 kids, I've got 3 kids. Right, and he even said himself, he doesn't want headlights going in and out of his window while he's watching TV. Well, that's what I'm gonna get. And it's, I don't know, it's just not right.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. This is the one with 5 kids. God bless you.
My husband drives transport for a living, 53 foot. Now, my husband could never bring his transport trailer or truck down that road. If he could swing any trailer on that narrow 2 road, it would have to be widened. Trees had to be taken out because you would never be able to back in a trailer or a transport. Now there's a zoning there. You'd have to change the zoning. And the pavement would be just tore up like crazy, running back and forth, back and forth. It's going to have to be repaired all the time, all the time. No way could he pull in a trailer, I don't care if he has 4 go-karts or whatever, in that narrow road to pull into a business. It'd be impossible. I got to go into the second road just with my pickup truck to back up out of there to make sure it's safe. You would have to widen that road, move the trees, all the power lines, all the hydro, everything, to make a wide turn into that business. Thank you.
Members of council, we're now going to dive into this report. I'm going to start off with Councillor Bodner. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it okay if I remain seated? Or?
That's fine.
Okay. If I start coughing, just go on to somebody else. I'll be back. The worst thing a councillor can have, a cough that's activated by talking. You know, when this started, it's not an easy decision to make. I know council has wrestled with this, individual councillors. You know, I've had conversations with Mike, not so much with Butch because I happen to see Mike more often. And these guys did the right thing. They came to the city staff and they, you know, went through this for a number of months. I think staff did the right thing when they said that it could go there. I think where we differ is that the use of the land. I don't think it's the best use of land. If there ever was or ever will be a downtown Shirkston, it's more than likely that corner with a church on one corner, community center on the other, and probably the thing that should go on this land is something that would more service the community. And I think Mr. Crossingham was reading my notes when he was talking, but it did all come down to what's the best use of that land and what's the best use in that community. And I can't get past that. It just isn't the best use for that land that I can think of. Also, Shirkston Shores, and you know what? If it was my company, I'd want to be as close to Shirkston Shores. That's the business. You got to be. It'd be stupid for me to have a grocery store service at Shirkston Shores if I was out on Beach Road or something like that, right? You got to be where the action is. So I get the whole thing. I'd be worried about the expansion part of it. You know, that isn't a big lot, so there is, you know, it limits the expansion, and I think that, you know, that Mike might be here asking for a little more land there if he had a chance to expand. So, again, I don't think it just fits in there. So those are some of the reasons that I'll be voting against it. I really, you know, not because Butch and Mike are bad people. I just, you know, I just don't think it's the best use of that land. So, and I am customers of theirs. I've bought a cart from them. A gas cart, Mr. Lee, because you don't sell gas carts, right? We talked about that, you know. So, but, you know, not bad people, just a bad spot.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butters.
I've sifted through a lot of information, and I think that if this piece of property was being kind of massaged or manipulated in a certain way to make this particular business fit, if it was some other kind of business that fit the hamlet, I would be okay with that. And if it was something to do with, you know, the horse people out there, because there's all kinds of, I think, you know, horses should get the right to vote at some point because there's so many now. If it was something like that, I would be so much better with this because then it would fit the community. One of the things in the last public meeting, and I believe it was in Sherry's comments, and she talked about neighborhoods and she talked about community. And the hamlet really is a very special place. It has a very, I think, a unique quality to it. The folks here have demonstrated very clearly that they want to preserve that unique quality of the hamlet. I don't think any of them are opposed to something that fits, but they don't see this as fitting, and I don't see it fitting either. When we look at the policies that govern this, and it says that it should be beneficial, well, I think it would benefit the applicant to be positioned there, but I don't see that it benefits the hamlet. And I've really thought about it, but I cannot see a way how it actually benefits the hamlet. It probably benefits Shirkston Shores to some degree, but they are part-time residents, and as far as I'm concerned, it's the full-time residents that we're really here to look after. That's what I take to heart is you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of letters against this proposal. I look at, I know golf carts come out of Shirkston Shores, whether they're supposed to or not supposed to, they come out of Shirkston Shores on a regular basis. And I can imagine that if this business was located up at the other end of Empire Road, there would be people, rightly, wrongly, jumping in that golf cart, just buzzing down to see what they might be able to get to trick out their golf carts. And I think it'll add to that problem. And not that that's the business's fault, but the fact that they would be there, I think, will certainly add to it. I also worry about the water issues is always, that's first and foremost in my mind is water and how the dirty water gets gotten rid of. We have a task force now through the mayor's office dealing with municipal drains and improving water quality. The last thing I want to see is more dirty water eventually going into Lake Erie and that's, as much as he could recapture the water in some kind of system, eventually it has to go somewhere. And I'm worried it would end up going into our drainage systems. I think when it comes to the benefit of the hamlet, this business does not benefit the hamlet. And for that reason, I will not be supporting this.
Members of Council, further comments? I'll come back to you, Councillor Bodner. I have Councillor Kenny, then Councillor Desmarais. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was one of the councillors that went out and visited the business. I spent that morning, actually, I went and looked at the property first, got out, looked around, tried to look where he was going to put his building. I then went to the business and drove around until they stopped me, Butch and Mike stopped me and said, were you interested in asking some questions? And I said, is this what this business is going to look at in that location? And they basically said this was their busiest time because all the carts were there, and now as their opening season, that would empty out. But then I also listened and read many emails I received in regards to this proposal from the residents of Shirkston. I had to go back through some notes I had from, as I sit on the Committee of Adjustment for the city as well. And one of the things you have to consider when you're looking for a variance or severance or a change in a community or an area, it says that policy 1D6 has been satisfied as residents have been consulted and their views considered and addressed through mitigation measures. That hasn't happened to me. That I don't see any of their concerns addressed. And you got to remember that the only reason this proponent is in front of us, as he was, is because he didn't want to move from where he was. But the town of Fort Erie, all of a sudden, after him being there for so many years, told him, you got to go. You're on agricultural land. He would have been quite happy to continue his life and his business in that area, but the town forced his hand. They forced his hand, so he had to try to find another place. And this is the place he looked at, and this is the place that he felt was the best place for his business to locate. But unfortunately for me, when I look at it, it doesn't fit in with that hamlet. It does not. And therefore, as another councillor for the city of Port Colborne, and I use that word city because we are city councillors, not ward councillors, I will not be supporting this.
Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a really difficult decision, and some of you are, I'm sure, think it's quite clear cut. For me, it wasn't. By no means was it clear cut. Both sides have have a very strong case. The golf carts coming up and down the road, that is a bit of a side issue. That has everything to do with the operators of the golf carts, not the people who sell them. And we do, I'm sure all of us do realize that. The idea of traffic issues, yeah, we have traffic issues on that road, seeming to more relate to Shirkston and the people coming in and out of there than a business that would be located up near Highway 3. So that's not what swings it for me. As far as being within the legal bounds of everything, again, there's a lot of leeway here, and everything isn't so cut and dried for me. What sways me and what's causing me to change the direction that I was moving in, because I firmly believe that we need every business we can get to provide every job we can have. I absolutely believe that. But I think that when our taxpayers come to us and say, we don't want this in our community, this is not one or two people, this is almost a community of people coming and saying that, I think they need to be heard. I've been on the other side of this one personally, and I know that as a taxpayer and as a person who lives in this community, whether you're a renter or an owner, you need to be heard. So therefore, I'm going to be finding on your side.
Thank you, Councillor. Members of council, further questions or comments? The first-time speakers? Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to pick up on one thing that was brought up a number of times, is that, Shirkston Shores will somehow benefit from Mike and Butch having their business there. But in all reality, Shirkston Shores will get golf carts whether Mike or Butch are there. They could be in Mississauga and delivered to them. So I don't think Shirkston Shores is a big reason, other than it's their main customer. But just like to put that out there, that Shirkston Shores will get carts no matter who will deliver them to them, and from whatever distance. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further comments or questions from members of the public? Or, I'm sorry, members of council? No further questions, comments? I will be asking for your vote and your pleasure on this recommendation. It has been moved and seconded. Councillor Bodner.
Mr. Mayor, I know we don't do a recorded vote at committee. Usually we do it at council.
Right.
But could I ask council's leave to do it now, and we'll do it again, or else everybody's got to stick around to to the council portion, which could be another time. Now, also knowing that, however we vote now, somebody could change their mind at the council, right, portion, which is another 20 minutes, half hour away. I don't know, whatever.
I'm assuming we'll get there pretty quick.
Yeah.
So it's, I think it would be a moot point. The problem that I have, Councillor Bodner, is we've had a major decision just a few months ago go from here to here, from committee to council. And I would hate to see all you folks leave during committee, and then all of a sudden council comes along, you go home, you're sad or happy depending on the vote, and all of a sudden it changes 10 minutes later. So I would encourage you to stick around And let's do this proper and get this at the council meeting. We will ask, I know we've had a request from a member of the public to have a recorded vote. I think council's agreed to that. A member of council will ask for that during the council portion, which we'll get to momentarily. Okay? Members of council, are there any further questions or comments? With that, to the report, your pleasure, to the recommendation contained within the report. You know the recommendation actually calls for support of this, so you know which way would be appropriate to vote in terms of which way you should go. Okay, just wanted to make sure you understood that. All those in favor? Opposed? It would be lost. Okay, thank you. So the motion is lost. Members of council, and that exhausts the items on the agenda. Members, notice the motion for this evening. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be presenting a motion next council meeting regarding the need for a culture plan, the creation of a culture plan for Port Colborne.
Councillor? That'll be at the next meeting? Yes. Thank you. Any further notices of motion? Members? With none, we'll now move on to motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting or tonight's agenda. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. We'll now get into the council portion of our agenda. Madam Clerk, addendum items, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first addendum item is a memorandum concerning an agreement with Frog and the Sock respecting Nickel Beach. The second is correspondence respecting a regional transit seniors ride for a free day. The third, email correspondence and attaching the application for zoning bylaw amendment with respect to the northwest corner of Shirkston and Empire Roads. The fourth item is a correction to item 3, noting that the temporary permit will be provided for on Thursday, May 23rd from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. In addition, we also have a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with Frog and the Sock respecting Nickel Beach. And finally, I would like to withdraw the consideration of the bylaw associated with the rezoning application for Shirkston and Empire Roads due to council's consideration of that item.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of council, I am going to ask for a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Disclosures of interest. I have Councillor Elliott and Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a conflict on item 3 as I participate in the event in the item.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodner.
Mr. Mayor, it's the same conflict I had before, but I can't honestly remember what number it is, so.
We got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bodner. Any further disclosures this evening, members? With none, we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes. I do have 2 sets of minutes, and if you don't mind, I'll do them in block. That's fine. The first being the minutes of the 10th meeting special of council, dated March 25th, 2013, and it is amended as per your package. And the second is the minutes of the 14th meeting regular of council, dated April 22nd, 2013. Do a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Bodner, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. We'll now move on to items requiring a separate discussion. Councillor Butters.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we would need to lift number 3 for the conflict for Councillor Elliott, as well as the one for Councillor Bodner, and item number 1 for recorded vote.
Okay, so we're looking at item number 1, 3, and 24. Okay. So for the remainder of the items, if I can have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Desmarais. Are there any questions or comments to those items? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now move on to the consideration of the items requiring a separate discussion. Councillor Butters, we'll start off with item 1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as per the request, we would ask for a recorded vote for number 1.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that recommendation, please? Now, we're carrying on from the recommendation from the committee meeting. Madam Clerk? Or are we actually re-voting on this same recommendation?
It would be the recommendation approved in committee.
Right, which turned this down. Okay, so just to be straight here, I'm asking for a mover, which is Councillor Butters, and I'll be asking for a seconder to actually approve what was approved in Committee of the Whole, which was to turn down the recommendation. Seconder, Councillor Bodner. Are there any comments or questions? Well, I'm going to make some comments because I haven't had a chance yet, and if I would have had to step down from the chair. But I'm going to make some comments with respect to the way I feel about this recommendation before I'm voting on it. I, like Councillor Bodner, went out, and well, most of the councillors went out and took a look at the area. I am the former Ward 4 councillor, so I'm very familiar with the area. Back in 1994, I represented the Ward 4 area and became very familiar with you, the people of Ward 4, as well as the area of Ward 4. And throughout time, really got to respect being a city boy, to some extent, some of the intricacies and the lifestyle of the Ward 4 area, and became very in tune with and appreciated the fact that the different areas existed and people lived in those areas because of what they offered. When you look at hamlet areas, whether it be Bethel, whether it be Shirkston, and so on and so forth, one of the things that you recognize, whether they're open or they're closed, and I say closed because a lot of them are, with respect to the businesses in those hamlets, you realize that those businesses were very specific to the area around them. Whether it be in Bethel, when you went to the corner of the concession there, and Chippewa Road, I believe the second concession in Chippewa Road, third concession in Chippewa Road. There's old Latinovich's place there, which was a store which was conducive to the area, conducive to the lifestyle of most of the residents in that area. When you go in the Shirkston Road area, and I know Sherry, you were alluding to this in your presentation last time, but yes, my wife did grow up in the Shirkston area, right across the street from the old post office, and of course the store that was there at one time as well. No, I'm sorry, the store, not the post office. The post office was down the road, which the Robinsons ended up buying and putting a home there. And so again, I learned a lot, again, being a city boy, what Ward 4 had, Whispering Pines, I see Mr. Diplock down there. Those are all conducive to the area with respect to what your, as residents, needs are, in fact, on your daily routines, and of course, who you frequent in businesses both past and present. As the mayor of Port Colborne, for too long, I got to say, there's times when I look at the community from 10,000 feet and above, and look down, and I'm quite thankful to our forefathers on the way Port Colborne was planned. When you look at Port Colborne, we're quite fortunate in comparison to other communities, whereby we have industry, where industry should be, quite frankly. We have commercial retail, where commercial retail should be. We have residential areas where residential areas should be. We have hamlet areas where hamlet areas should be. And I often talk to other mayors throughout, if not Ontario, throughout the entire country. And there's always a wish when you're up there looking down in your community thinking, geez, I wish I could move that and put it over here and move that and put it over here, but we can't. And we're sort of stuck with what some of the things our forefathers did. But again, Port Colborne's quite fortunate because we only have one or two of them. When you go to cities like St. Catharines and Welland and Foote Area, for example, and God bless them, they're great communities, but there's sometimes, especially in the bigger municipalities, a mishmash of industrial, commercial, residential, all in these different areas. And it becomes very frustrating over time because of the challenges that those areas have, because there's sort of mixed land uses in those specific areas. And I can cite 10 or 12 of them just in the city of St. Catharines alone, and I'm sure it's a headache for the mayor, or the council, or even more so for the residents, more importantly. So I appreciate that. And again, in Port Colborne, we're very, very fortunate that we don't really have that, except for maybe one or two. And I'm not going to mention them, who I would love to pick up and just move them over to the north end where the industry is. Like Councillor Bodner, I do feel this is not the proper use for that property. And quite frankly, if it was, you wouldn't be here. That's the bottom line. And that is what it is. If it was conducive, simply put, you wouldn't be here. I have to say this as well, and it's sort of a sore spot for me, and I was torn like Councillor Desmarais, because we do want more business to come to this community, and we're not anti-business, and nor if you look at my past votes, especially those that are recorded, do I somewhat lean of what people might call the NIMBY attitude, not my backyard attitude, because I have made choices before, whether as mayor or as a councillor, on the other side of the fence, and got booed in this chamber. But that's what I believed in at the time. And this is what I believe in at this time. And one of the things I want to say with respect to supporting business in our community is I do believe, just based on the questions that were asked and answered, that this business can be, in fact, a great business for Port Colborne, but in a different location. Whether that be on a property that was mentioned tonight, whether it be in any property. And that's specifically why I asked the question about the traffic. Because regardless if you're located on Empire Road or the industrial park or another commercial retail more appropriately zoned property, you can still operate and transport these cars up and down Empire Road, regardless of where you're located. So to have it be conducive to the people of Shirkston, who, by the way, are part of our community, and we still look after them as well, regardless if they live here all year round or not. The bottom line is that there really is no advantage to them because their cars can be, they have to be transported anyways, regardless. They still have to be transported. It's not, the only luxury they have is if they were able to zip up and down Empire Road. But we're hearing that's not the case. So whether they're located here, there, or everywhere, and quite frankly, if you're located in the city of Port Colborne, it actually forces the people of Shirkston to come into Port Colborne and hopefully frequent the other businesses that we have in the community. So put it right downtown. But having said that, those are my thoughts. And for that reason, I won't be supporting, or I will be supporting the committee's recommendation and wouldn't support the actual recommendation that came to committee. To the Gordons, you know, there's other opportunities out there, and I would love to sit down and talk to you about those other opportunities with respect to bringing your business into Port Colborne. But simply put, I just don't think this certain piece of property is appropriate for it, and for that, therefore, I'll be supporting the direction of, now that I find out the majority of council with respect to the direction that they're going to take. I'll leave it at that. Members of council, to your pleasure to the motion. It is a recorded vote. I'll ask the clerk to call it that vote, and go from there. Ashley. Oh, hold on, Ash. Ron?
Just so everyone's clear, if we vote yes, we're voting for what happened at the council that we're against. Okay, just because sometimes, you know, it's easy to forget, so.
This is in support of the committee recommendation.
Yes.
Okay, which is to turn down the application. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr.
She's just going to call out the names. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A request for a recorded vote has been received from Councillor Butters, and in accordance with the procedural bylaw, I will announce the names of each councillor in alphabetical order. Upon hearing your name, please indicate either yes or no to the motion on the floor. Mayor Badaway?
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Bodnar?
Yes.
Councillor Butters?
Yes.
Councillor Danch?
Yes.
Councillor Desmarais?
Yes.
Councillor Elliott?
No.
Councillor Kenny?
Yes.
And Councillor Steele?
No.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, members. Okay, thank you, members of council. We'll now move on to proclamations. I do have two proclamations here. I'm sorry, yes, we have two more that were lifted. Councillor Butters. Conflict? That's fine, yeah.
Sorry. That the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne hereby grant a temporary permit to exempt port carriers from Section 4.3 of Bylaw 4588/119/04 on the following terms and conditions. One, that the temporary permit is for the period of Tuesday, May 21st, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Wednesday, May 22nd, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday, May May 24th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. inclusive. 2, the permit is applicable only to the production, reproduction, and amplification of sound in connection with this event.
Thank you. Do I have a second to that recommendation, please? Councillor Bodnar. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Butters, item 24, please. It's on a screen. Barb, look on the screen up there. You can read it right from the screen.
Township of Colborne, Henry, and regarding proposed motion from the Ontario Convenience Store Association regarding contraband tobacco we received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Danch, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the proclamations. I have 2 proclamations, and I'll be looking for a mover and seconder on that. The first being the proclamation for community living. Whereas Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet has provided supports and services to individuals with intellectual disabilities and their families here in the city of Port Colborne for the past 51 years. And whereas Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet support individuals as they develop their capacity to live, learn, work, and participate in all aspects of living within our community. And whereas Community Living Port Colborne and Wainfleet works with the City of Port Colborne, volunteers, and many other groups and organizations to build a community of inclusion, equality, and respect that celebrates the contribution of all of our citizens. And whereas Community Living Awareness Month is a province-wide initiative created to celebrate the philosophy and values of community living. Now therefore, I, Mayor Van Sam Badaway, proclaim May 2013 as Community Living Awareness Month here in the city of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. Now move on to our second proclamation with respect to spina bifida. That whereas spina bifida and Hydrocephalus Association of Ontario serves people with spina bifida and hydrocephalus, their families, and the public. And whereas Health Canada has proclaimed June as Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus Awareness Month, and whereas there are many people who are not aware of the association or that it offers support, information, and education programs and funds research to find ways to prevent the treatment of these conditions. And whereas the association encourages all Ontarians to learn more about these conditions and to appreciate the challenges faced by individuals affected by them. Now therefore, I, Mayor Van Sam Badaway, proclaim the month of June 2013 as Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus Awareness Month here in the city of Port Colborne, and I urge all citizens to give full consideration and attention to the Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus Association of Canada or Ontario for the work on behalf of those with spina bifida and hydrocephalus and their families. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Desmarais. Councillor Elliott. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Did you really have to put it in there that much? I got the hang of it after a while. Members, those are the proclamations for this evening. I have a whole slew, as you can see on your agenda, of minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. If you don't mind, I'll do them in block. That's great, okay? We do have the minutes of the long-term master plan city fire chief meeting of March 13, 2013. The minutes of the Board of Management of Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum meeting of March 19, 2013. The minutes of the Seniors Advisory Committee meeting of March 21, 2013. The minutes of the Canal Days Advisory Committee meeting of March 20, 2013. The minutes of the Joint Board of Management Niagara Region Courts meeting of March 22, 2013. The minutes of the Port Colborne Gateway Business Improvement Area Board of Management meeting of March 20, 2013. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele. That's enough, you guys.
Game's over. We can go now.
Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. I hope you're mourning because you're a Bruins fan. Boston won?
5-4.
Okay, guys. Notices of motion. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be bringing a motion forward next council meeting to address the need to create a culture plan for Port Colborne.
Thank you, Councillor. Madam Clerk, the introduction of the bylaws, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 59485413, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement of purchase and sale with J. Oscom Steel Fabricators Limited for the sale of approximately 1.21 acres of industrial land, and to repeal bylaw 59233413. Bylaw 59495513, being a bylaw to allow for entry of adjoining property for maintenance purposes. Bylaw 59505613, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 11509781 as amended, respecting lands known as Part Lot 17, Concession 1, and part of water lot in front of Lot 17, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Humberston, in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 1847 Fire Lane 2. Bylaw 59515713, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Griffin Landscaping regarding quotation 2013-06, supply of parks grass cutting services. Bylaw 59525813, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a funding agreement in respect of financial contribution by an upper tier level of government as specified in Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Marketing Report number 2013-5. And finally, bylaw 59535913, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement between the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne and Frog and Sock for the operation of Nickel Beach.
Thank you, Ashley. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Demery. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Madam Clerk, confirmatory bylaw, please.
That the following bylaw be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 59546013, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its special and regular meetings of May 13, 2013.
Thank you, Ashley. Members of Council, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Demery, Councillor Kenny. Yeah, any of you guys put your hand up or what? What's going on? I'm looking to my left tonight, okay? Councillor Demery, Councillor Kenny. Yeah. Touche. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Excuse me. Ron, I think you got too close to me tonight with that cold. Anyways, before I move on to the rest of the meeting with respect to the direction that we're going to be taking, I was remiss earlier on not offering my appreciation. Where's my notes? I don't need them. Offering my appreciation to Mr. Aquilina, Dan, to you and your staff in the planning department, Shannon LaRocque as well, for the issue that we dealt with earlier on Empire Road. A lot of folks don't know it, but planning staff usually takes the brunt of the concerns and sometimes of the frustration of the public, because they're simply reciting the official plan or they're reciting planning policies, provincial, regional, sometimes not even our agencies here, the MPCA and others. And they're sometimes the messenger or the communicator of some of those policies. So, and I know in this one, Dan, yourself and some of your staff have taken a bit of a hit on this, but by no means should you have. You did a great job, wonderful job in the report. Great job in everything that you communicated. It was bang on, Ashley, as well as you in your department, the clerk's office. I seen some of the emails that were flying back and forth, and some of it was unfair. Some of it was subjective and fair comment, but at the end of the day, some of it was unfair, and I do want to give you my sincere appreciation for the work that you did in that report with the Empire Road property, as well as you, Ashley, through the clerk's office, and the work that you did and your staff. Very well done, and Bob, to you as well, for administering all that great work. So thank you. Thank you. With that, members of council, we will now move into closed session to proceed in camera in order to address the following matters. Confidential Department of Planning and Development Report number 2013-27 in respect of a request for easement on city land in Lowell's Industrial Park pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or the local board. B, Confidential Department of Planning and Development Report number 2013-28, in respect, members of council, of extension of closing on an offer to purchase the West Side Arena pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or the local board. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Butters. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Have a wonderful week.